and welcome to the future. Otherwise known as episode 39, Tomorrow's World, Audit Time. Good evening, Mark. Actually, good afternoon, Mark. I've just realised it's afternoon, isn't it?
It is, yeah. We're bathed in sunlight, aren't we?
Actually, I can't believe you've made me sit in here indoors recording when I could be outside enjoying this lovely day.
Okay, what would you be doing instead?
Well, I'll tell you what, Mark, actually. It is on my island. They're having what they call a bazaar.
A Wicker Man festival?
They've called it a bazaar, right?
Yeah.
And it's going on all weekend. And they have an event, I don't know whether you've ever heard of it before, called Where Does the Cow Shit?
No? Is it like a spot the ball?
It is exactly like a spot the ball.
Oh, okay, a giant field with a cow.
So they have a giant field. They mark it out into squares, and then each person purchases a square, and then they release a cow into it, and obviously
let the cow at it.
Let the cow, yeah. I don't know whether they feed it a special breakfast or whatever, but whoever square it lands in, they win the prize money.
Wow, that's something, isn't it? Yeah.
I'm amazed they don't have it in like Las Vegas and stuff. You know, they love cows over there. But yes, episode 39. Of Tomorrow's World Audit Time. Bit of housekeeping, Mark. After last month's episode, almost, I would say, minutes? Seconds?
Handful of hours, no more than that.
After uploading our episode to YouTube, and I don't know how we found this, but you remember IBAISAIC, the man...
The internet's original unboxer.
Yes. Who... And presumably the internet's premium Hoover sensortronic expert, he commented underneath our video. And then I obviously immediately worried that we'd taken a piss out of him in some way. I'd just like to say,
too, but I think we were quite
respectful, yeah. I'd just like to say, if you are listening, we weren't taking a piss out of you, if it sounded like we were, because I don't think we have any leg to stand on.
Who the hell are we to judge you?
Exactly, yeah. But it's a lovely comment. I thought I might read it out in case anybody's not on YouTube. Yeah. It says, I unboxed that Hoover Sensortronic on my 20th birthday in 1989. I used to film vlogs for my pen pal Sue on a Panasonic M7 VHS camcorder and still have most of the footage. I can't explain to Paddington, it just happened to be in the room where I filmed the video. I remember seeing the Sensortronic on Tomorrow's World and rushed to turn on my video recorder, but missed the start of it, so it was great to see the whole thing. Howard also demonstrated an upright Hoover vacuum that listened to the dirt entering the bag and increased the power until everything was picked up. I have that clip on my channel. Might be another exciting episode, might be another episode to add to our, our ever-burgeoning list of Hoover-based episodes. I can't explain my interest in vacuum cleaners because my mum told me I was around 18 months old when I started showing an interest in vacuums, and it seems it's a common theme among collectors who also report that they started young. Every year around Christmas, I do shout-out videos for very young collectors who seem to like the smiley-faced Henry vacuums the best.
Of course they do.
I mean, I don't think anybody grows out of loving a Henry, cheeky Henry looking at you.
I think it always creeps me out, though, when you learn that there's an entire family of Henry brothers and sisters, all called different names.
Yes.
And I see they all do slightly different things.
Actually, weirdly, obviously, going back into Hoover chat now, when I was researching a replacement vacuum for the one that I burnt out, and I sent you a video of the one I managed to vacuum up a wall with that one.
You did.
Yes. But before I bought that Karcher, I was researching Henry vacuums. They do indeed all do a different thing, but they are ludicrously expensive. And a man as cheap as me could not stretch. I thought, well, if I could just stick my own googly eyes on my Karcher, and it'd be exactly the same, wouldn't it?
Which I assume you've already done, Russ.
So anyway, I was trying to find something to pin our 39th episode on, Mark, looking at various things that Michael Rodd was doing, and I stumbled across an episode of Screen Test, the program that he used to present, children's program he used to present, at the same time that he presented Tomorrow's World. And on April the 26th, 1979, he introduced a clip from the film Battlestar Galactica, which had just come out at the UK cinemas. It'd been out in the US. Oh, actually, in the US, it'd been played on TV because it's actually the pilot episode of the TV series. But in Britain, they thought we can make some more money out of this. So they packaged it up into a film and released it at the cinemas. And amazingly, not only did Michael Rodd present that, busiest man in show business at the time, not only did he present that episode of Screen Test that day with Battlestar Galactica on it. He then presented an episode of Tomorrow's World that very night, which doesn't feature Battlestar Galactica. But I thought, well, that's something we could talk about. Yeah,
I'll have that.
Thoughts on Battlestar Galactica, Mark?
Well, I've got more thoughts on the rebooted series than I do the original. I remember the original series being on TV, and I remember it felt like it was on a lot when we were in the mid 80s, and I remember being scared of the Cylons.
Yep. Classic enemy, and the eye. The red light going across their face. I do remember finding that scary. I don't remember. I kind of feel, as I was saying to you in the notes, I feel like at some point there was just an agreement amongst, I'm assuming, BBC schedulers that whenever they were going to show an episode of Battlestar Galactica, they were now going to replace it with Buck Rogers. Well, I always prefer
Battlestar Galactica was never on. Yeah, I know. Well, yeah. I mean, but you like Roger Moore, don't you? He was the Roger Moore of TV sci-fi. It was definitely more fun when we were kids.
And also yes, exactly. You got Billy Billy Billy, and in the pilot episode where Buck Rogers does disco dance, teaches the future squares how to disco dance.
Yeah,
I think is one of the greatest scenes in cinema ever. It's so excruciating. I love it. Obviously, Buck Rogers was also made by Glenn A. Larson, who is one of the makers of the maker of Battlestar Galactica. So I think it's a case of but Battlestar Galactica only ran for 21 episodes.
Yeah, I've got this weird feeling like maybe they never even really finished it.
No, it was ludicrously expensive. At the time, it was $1 million an episode. And
that's a lot of money.
Yeah. I was watching the pilot last night, or some of it anyway. Didn't get all the way through it. And it does look quite expensive. For a TV programme, it does look quite expensive. It's not Star Wars expensive, obviously, but it for the late 70s, it's pretty impressive, I think.
It looks good. It does look good. And actually, I think it looks good because the direction of it is really interesting and they put effort in. So like every time a fighter launches, you see it from a different angle. It's not just like the same shot but reversed.
Yes.
It's like, the camera, even like the camera being fixed attached to the ship as it goes through the tube. It's like, that's really interesting. It's just a really fun way of showing something. It's like, I think they put even in that, because actually weirdly when we watched that episode of Screen Test, I think the episode's only about 20 minutes, but a good 10 minutes of that are the clips. They really go on for like 2 minutes. So you got a good chunk of the episode there. And I thought it looked great. Even the big giant control room is big,
Yeah. Imagine if you were a kid watching that episode of Screen Test, you'd definitely be well excited to see.
I'd be buzzing to go see that.
Yeah,
it looks action packed. For me, Battlestar Galactica, it was only when the reboot came out, and the only reason I watched that was because Charlie Brooker talked about it on TV, a Screen Wipe rather, and he said, "Do you know what? Despite this being Battlestar Galactica, it's really good." And I remember renting the pilot because that had a feature-length pilot that you could rent on DVD before the series came out, and I got that off Netflix or Love Film, and it was brilliant. And it's relatively fresh in my memory because about a month ago I started kind of beginning to rewatch it again, and I think it completely holds up.
I absolutely loved it.
Partly because, albeit some of the graphics, which were kind of revolutionary at the time, now kind of looks a bit more like Babylon 5 than it does, something new. What is great about it is that the choices they made at the time were that the anachronisms on the show were based on like 70s TV.
Yeah.
So it already looked out of date when it was on 10 years ago or 20 years ago now at this point. Was it 2004 or something like that? So now it just it hasn't aged at all.
Like cutting the corners off the paper.
Yeah, no, absolutely zero purpose, but it becomes really, really fun.
Yeah. No, I have really fond memories of that series because it was do you remember that time that after the pub quiz, I slipped over on the ice and broke my elbow?
I do remember that, Russell, yes.
So I was off work, because I can't possibly work with a broken elbow, Mark. So I was off work for about a month. And during that time, all I did was watch the entirety of Battlestar Galactica in one big go.
It curtailed your work, it curtailed your love life, but I'm pretty sure you still turned up to the pub the following week to tell me about you watching Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah, and played through Mass Effect 1 and 2 as well.
Yeah.
Probably best 4 weeks of my life, Mark. So I just had thought of look into a few Battlestar Galactica things, and I think this is quite well known that Glenn A. Larson is a Mormon, and Battlestar Galactica is actually based on Mormonism. Which obviously immediately made me think, oh, is Starbuck wearing those special underpants that you told me about a few episodes back?
Oh, yeah. The magic underwear.
Yeah. And so it's, because apparently the Mormons believe that there are multiple tribes of Mormons and some of them live in outer space and all of this. And there's like a special star where God lives. And in real life, the Mormons call it Kolob, but cleverly in Battlestar Galactica, it's called Kobol. So you can see what they did there.
Oh, wow. I see what they did there.
Yeah. The other thing, I remember when I first saw, because I saw Battlestar Galactica after I saw Knight Rider. And I remember thinking, hang on a minute, why have the Cylons got the same thing as Kit? And it's obviously because Glenn A. Larson made Knight Rider as well. And he just really liked the Cylon effect. So he decided to put that in Kit as well. And in fact, in technical circles now, that piece of kit is still known as a Larson scanner in his honour.
Really?
Yes. Yeah.
I like that a lot. That's fabulous.
But then it got me thinking. But Kit is a super intelligent car. So does that mean he's the first Cylon? Do you think he?
It's like the Skynet, is it?
Do you think?
Yeah, Cyberdyne.
Kit, like, you know, as he went on, became more intelligent, gave himself a body so he didn't have to drive.
He evolved legs.
So he didn't have to drive everywhere. And then the rest was history.
Walking so much more efficient.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. They could well be part of a shared universe.
Exactly.
Well, the thing is, like, they're apparently rebooting Battlestar Galactica again.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I don't know who's doing it. And I assume, therefore, that now the opportunity is... Because obviously they rebooted Knight Rider a few years ago. Shared universe. I'm in.
Everyone loves a shared universe, Mark.
Everyone loves a shared universe. We haven't had enough of them, Russ. If anything, there should be more.
I then got into a little bit of a Knight Rider Battlestar Galactica thing. So the Battlestar Galactica theme, which is a great tune, isn't it?
Yeah.
All that. It's by a man called Stu Phillips. I thought, Stu Phillips must be a good composer. Then I found out he did the Knight Rider theme tune. The man must be an absolute genius.
Yeah.
Well, is he Mark? Or is he the world's worst plagiarist of all time?
Oh, go on then. Leaning in.
So, just to
you brought the receipts, haven't you?
I brought some pretty sizable receipts here, Mark. So let's just a quick refresher. This is the Knight Rider. If anybody at home, for whatever reason, has never heard the Knight Rider theme tune, it's an absolute classic. So I'll just play a bit of this.
Strap in, my friends. Yeah.
Right, so keep that synthy bass bit in mind, and then keep that fanfare in mind.
Yep.
Synthy bass line. Let's go to a tune released by a German who I have to admit I've never heard of before, called Harry Thumann, who was apparently a bit of a synth legend in the early 80s. In 1982, just before Knight Rider came out, he released this. Pretty close, though, isn't it?
That's pretty uncanny.
But It's missing that little fanfare, though, isn't it?
Also, for people listening on the podcast and not watching on YouTube, his silhouette is on screen, and that looks like Michael Knight's silhouette.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah, I thought about that. Good grief. So, yeah, but not that little fanfare's missing, though. Well, here we go. So we've got the French composer Léo Delibes and his tune Cortège de Bacchus from sometime Victorian times. I don't know what it specifically was.
Other pronunciations are available.
Yeah. So let's have a look and listen to this here.
That's it. I was actually expecting it to be subtly different. It's not. It's the same.
Absolutely shameless, isn't it?
Oh my God.
Stu Phillips is a hack.
Stu.
Incredible. And what funny thing is Glenn A. Larson himself, apparently the famous science fiction writer Harlan Ellison used to refer to him as Glenn A. Larceny because of the amount of stuff he would just nick from other scripts and other shows. And apparently there was one stage where James Garner found out that
Maverick,
yes, and the Rockford Files.
Yep.
Glenn A. Larson had stolen a Rockford Files script, and James Garner just punched him. The claim was he punched him so hard he went through a trailer. But I don't think that's probably true. But so. I thought it was quite interesting. Anyway, we're not even talking about Knight Rider. I just wanted to crowbar that in because I found it out and I just thought...
That's amazing.
I can't think of any other situation where I'd be talking about the Knight Rider theme tune.
No.
The other interesting thing about Battlestar Galactica, obviously, the other talk about rip-offs, is that George Lucas followed this whole thing quite carefully because it is... I mean, Battlestar Galactica is clearly, wouldn't have existed without Star Wars being there. And also the fact that the bloke doing the special effects on Battlestar Galactica used to work for Industrial Light and Magic. So it's John Dykstra, I think his name is. Dykstra. So yeah, Lucas was keeping an eye on that. And apparently John Williams was making sure that they didn't copy the music and all of this. So they've given a bit like a keen eye on the programme. But actually, apparently, and this gave me a bit more respect for Lucas, actually. One of his main concerns was that Mattel were making knockoff toys. Well, not knockoff toys, but they're making Battlestar Galactica toys, which Lucas was concerned would be confused with the Star Wars toys. And not just for a commercial reason, it's because the Mattel toys he thought would be a choking hazard because they had parts that kids could swallow, whereas he was made sure that the Star Wars toys didn't have any of that.
Okay.
And sure enough, I've got this, there was an incident in Christmas Day 1978. A 4-year-old child accidentally shot a pellet from a Cylon Raider toy into his mouth, where it lodged in his larynx and caused his brain to be deprived of oxygen. He was declared dead 6 days later.
Fucking hell.
A second incident involving the Colonel Viper toy ended up with emergency surgery to remove an inhaled pellet from a young boy's lungs. The second incident was not fatal, but Mattel subsequently redesigned all his Galactica toys so that they no longer fired pellets. I mean...
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Well done, George Lucas, yeah.
But I like the fact that Mattel didn't withdraw the toys, they just redesigned them. We've only killed one kid and nearly killed another one. We'd just redesign them, it'd be fine.
Yeah, it's just grand, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, it matters. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. The final thing on Battlestar Galactica, I think, is it needs to be recognised as like the nexus of the Saturday afternoon television that we used to watch. Because obviously you've got Glenn A. Larson, who I already said did Knight Rider. He also did Magnum P.I. And Quincy as well, another one he invented. And The Fall Guy, which there's a film of that coming out soon, isn't there?
There is, yeah.
But his main co-producer and writer on Battlestar Galactica was Donald P. Belisario.
Yeah, I've been waiting for this name, Russ. I've been sitting here. When are you going to bring up Belisarius Productions?
Belisario. That sound going off of the thing.
That is my childhood.
Yeah. Creator of course, Airwolf and, of course, Quantum Leap. Other interesting fact about Belisario, Mark, is that he was in the Marines with Lee Harvey Oswald in the 50s. Ooh. And he once punched Lee Harvey Oswald because he saw him reading a copy of Pravda.
Okay.
Yeah. And apparently that was part of the inspiration, not punching him, but the fact that he knew Lee Harvey Oswald was part of the inspiration of why he came up with Quantum Leap.
Quantum Leap. What if he could travel back?
If he could travel back in time. Yeah. That's interesting. And then another writer on Battlestar Galactica was a man called Frank Lupo. And Frank Lupo was the main writing partner and co-creator with Stephen J. Cannell of the A-Team.
Yeah, wow.
So yeah, it is the nexus from which all
Gosh, that's amazing.
Those Saturday
the Fountainhead.
Yes, yeah. And obviously the other big connection with the A-Team is Dirk Benedict, the mighty Dirk Benedict.
Of course.
And I sent you that lovely photograph of Dirk Benedict and Katie Sackhoff getting a coffee. So it's Starbuck and Starbuck having
that's
a Starbucks.
Amazing. Yeah, that's great. I was not aware of that. How did I not know that picture existed? Because that's just fabulous.
Yeah. I mean, that beats the... I mean, previously, my favourite was obviously Dr. Brian Cox shaking hands with Brian Cox.
Yeah.
But this one knocks it into a cocked hat because they're in a...
Cox hat.
Because there's no coffee place called Brian Cox's, so they couldn't.
No, there isn't.
Hang out
No. I suppose they could get like penis enlargement surgery. That's about it.
Interestingly, Dirk Benedict had prostate cancer in the 1970s before he became famous, and claims that he cured it by going on a macrobiotic diet, which was recommended to him by the silent movie star Gloria Swanson.
Oh gosh.
And he's still with us, so
yeah.
But according to scientists and the Cancer Research Society, I did check. Macrobiotic diets do not cure cancer. So maybe he was just too handsome for the cancer to
sheer Riz levels, as they would say, Ross.
I was thinking actually. I think he's the American Roger Moore, Dirk Benedict. He has that same quality of being really good looking and charming, and put in action stuff where he doesn't really look like he could do any action because he's too busy chatting the women up.
But you have just reminded me actually, because obviously the opening credits to the A-Team include a bit where Dirk Benedict, doesn't he walk past
Cylon walks past him, and he does a double take. Yeah.
And you just got me thinking, it's like, is that, certainly from our childhood or like our age, is that the first like meta commentary that you and I ever saw?
Yeah, probably.
I do remember as a child like not getting it, and then one day going, hang on a minute, that's from a completely different show that he was in as an actor. I don't understand,
Yeah, he probably is actually. Wow.
Yeah, for us anyway. I mean,
blowing our tiny minds.
Yes, I do, because I do vividly remember. And then every time afterwards, just like smiling, thinking like, oh, I see what they've done there. Yeah. I don't think anyone else has caught this, but I have.
Wow, maybe that's why everything's so meta these days, Mark.
Yeah.
Right. Anyway, that's enough about that. Speaking of potentially dangerous robots, shall we get into the first segment of this episode?
There's a two-eyed monster loose on the lawns of Hampshire. But unlike its ancestors, this one is man's friend, programmed to do his bidding. In fact, it's an automatic lawnmower. Designed by 3 Farnborough sixth formers, the grasshopper always moves in a straight line until it comes to the lawn's edge. When, by rolling its eyes, it smartly crabs sideways, switches into reverse, and carries on. But it isn't clever enough to cope completely with the unexpected. And when this happens, man the master must step in. The motor, powered by mains electricity, cuts the grass with standard rotary blades. They're driven by this central motor, rescued from an old washing machine. There are 2 other motors. This one drives the wheels, this one the eyes. They both used to work windscreen wipers. But the really clever bit is this probe. When it detects the edge of the lawn, it sends a message to a relay which stops the drive motor, activates the eyes, and then puts it into reverse. Mind you, the grasshopper isn't totally labor-saving. You do have to dig a trench all around your lawn before it can start to work at all.
Now, Mark, it's a shame that that Philippa Forrester wasn't presenting back in 1979 because this is right in her wheelhouse, isn't it, Mark? It's got Robot Wars wwritten all over it.
Jonathan Pierce voiceover instead, yeah?
yeah. And sixth formers making themselves a robot. I think, but I'm genuinely impressed by how well made this is. It looks like a real piece of kit, doesn't it? For sixth formers, amazing.
Hugely impressive. It's actually witty as well. Like there's a lot going for it.
Ah, yeah. So it did say, if you can't see it, it's a lawnmower with a giant pair of eyes on it that seems to do quite a good job with its limited resources of chugging around a lawn and mowing it. I don't know how safe it is to have toddlers crawling around on the lawn at the same time that this unmanned mower is going around.
It seems to reduce an unnecessary amount of peril. I wouldn't. Yeah.
But it's the second. Is it the second sixth form project we've had on the program?
Second, yeah.
I think I prefer this
after the archery thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Were they so lacking in new inventions in the 70s that they needed to chuck an occasional sixth form project in there, or do you think it was just to encourage it, just a piece of encouragement?
I don't know. Maybe it's just more testament to how much stuff there was still to invent that even sixth formers could come up with a solid idea.
Yeah. No, maybe that is it. Yeah.
I mean, having said that, we both made the same observation, which is that, lovely idea, and it is a cute little thing, and it's a very smart, it's very simple, it's a very smart way they have of making sure that it goes back and forth. It is, however, not really cutting the grass so much as it is ploughing it. And there is one shot, especially the first time you see a wider shot, where there is no one who owns that lawn would ever allow this thing anywhere near. People are very precious about their lawns, and it is absolutely digging through two giant canals.
It did make me think that maybe they should have invented an automatic plough instead, because
yeah, they did a great job.
Yeah, I mean, ploughing needs to be done. It's quite a boring job. Just do that. Do you think it's doing that because it's just so heavy? Do you think?
I do. I think. Well, it's when they take. I mean, what is it? It's like it may be like 30, 40 centimeters high, and maybe kind of 60 by 60. Like it's a kind of a square, and then it's got the two big wheels at the side, and then the eyes at the front, which rotate and lift it up slowly and position it. Kind of an extra 15 centimeters. So it's going back up and down like a typewriter, It's almost like, but with it moving rather than the page. But when they lift off the cover, it is incredibly well engineered, but it is absolutely chock full of big looking bits of engineering. Yeah, I absolutely suspect that it's because it's the wheels, and I do wonder, like, because obviously this is broadcast in April. They probably filmed this in February. So like maybe the lawn was just too moist, but it looks really substantial and heavy. But the other thing we should mention is, because they allude to it there, is that in order for it to work properly, you do actually have to dig trenches around your lawn.
Yes,
as you say, to keep the lawn beast contained.
Yes, yeah. But interestingly,
so there's a lot of damage you need to do in order to get this to work.
Interestingly, obviously you can buy robot lawnmowers now, Mark.
Yes.
If you buy one now, you would have to initially dig up your lawn, almost certainly, because almost all of them, they rely on you burying a cable underneath you. So you have to.
Oh, interesting.
You have to bury a cable underneath the boundary of your lawn, and then you bury another one that's halfway, like marks the halfway point. Obviously, you can put the turf back over the top of it, unlike these school kids who are just digging trenches, and including just whole daffodils that they've decided just are in the way. And
collateral damage.
And then just leaving those trenches there. With the modern ones, you at least can replace the turf after you've buried the cable. But that's how they work. So you can still get them now. I did try and find the most expensive one I could find, Mark, and I put it at the bottom of the document.
You succeeded.
Have you seen it? It looks cool, though, doesn't it?
It does look pretty cool.
If you drove, Batman could drive around in that, I reckon, and people would be pretty excited. It's got a bit of a Batmobile look about it. That's the what are they called? Husqvarna. It's a Swedish mower. Husqvarna. It's the
logo in the front.
It's the Auto Mower 435X AWD, Mark. That's got a working area capacity of 3,500 meters squared, and max.
That is a lot, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, you're not. I mean, the sort of people that are shelling out this much money for a mower have probably got quite a big garden, aren't they? Really?
Oh yeah.
But that's going to cost you £4,999. No, £4,999.
Yeah. I'm glad it's not £5,000. Otherwise, I wouldn't be interested.
No,
but now you've piqued me. Yeah.
You could probably. Do you reckon you could sit on that? Well, I reckon your kids could probably sit on it, or your cat or your dog could probably sit on it.
Oh yeah. There you go. You'd make the money back just doing Instagram posts of your cat on top of that.
Yeah. I just hope that doesn't fall off and go under.
Which might be. Yeah, no, that's true. That's a different sales pitch, isn't it? £5,000 is a lot of money. Go on.
Yeah, there is one. There is another one called the Works Landroid, which does use a camera, so you don't need to bury cables in there. So if you're worried about your precious lawn, that's the one to get. That'll cost you about £3,000, I think. But yeah, other than that, that's really all I have to say about robot lawnmowers, Mark.
That's great. That's as much as we need to say, Russ.
There are nearly 500,000... I'm sorry, I'll say that again. There are nearly 500,000 alarm bells like this one, pinned on walls up and down Britain. And occasionally they go off when they're supposed to. Now, the basic design of an alarm bell hasn't changed much in 100 years. It's a system of electromagnets, levers and springs that bash a small hammer repeatedly against a metal gong. And it's the vibrating metal that's making all that noise. Now, its disadvantages are that it has moving parts that can go wrong. It's expensive to make, and it takes a lot of electricity. But now, an inventor has come up with something new. He's replaced this entire mass of moving parts with one small crystal. The crystal is piezoelectric, which means that it literally alters its shape if a voltage is applied across it. Now, if I feed it an alternating voltage, the crystal will vibrate. And if it's stuck on the back of a metal can like this, well, and there's a crystal, well, the can should vibrate too and so make a noise. But to get that noise to really belt out, I need to tune that voltage to set the can ringing on one of its natural frequencies. And if I just sprinkle powder, like a podium powder it's called, onto the can and set it going, well, let's just see what happens. Turn it on. And there, the powder has formed a distinctive pattern and the alarm is ringing. Now, that's an alarm with no moving parts. The inventor has miniaturized these electronics and built them into the space inside the hollow of the can. It runs on very little electricity from this radio battery, and it has one interesting, if bizarre, characteristic. Watch this. Right, I'll just plug it in. There's the alarm. Works underwater too, which if you live underwater is just the thing for you. Now a report
This
on
is the world's most ambitious automatic people mover.
Now, before we get into this, Mark, I think we need to address, is that the worst cock-up we've ever seen in an episode?
Easily the worst. Yep. Do you want to explain what happens?
Well, Kieran is merrily demonstrating how his new alarm works underwater, and has barely even started to introduce the next segment when the next segment just starts.
We have a wipe and we hear both him and Michael Rodd speaking at the same time. It's shocking.
Absolutely outrageous.
Incredibly unprofessional. I feel like writing into points of view. Yeah. I don't know what the statute of limitations is for points of view, but...
Yeah. Absolutely shodding lack of professionalism.
Yeah.
I hope whoever was involved in editing, well, not editing, what have we got? Queuing that
Directing. Yep.
Got the sack immediately, Mark.
Yep. Sack's not good enough for them, Russ.
This segment, Mark, I think you were unimpressed by it. I think it might be one of the most significant inventions we've ever seen on the programme.
I wasn't not aware of that, but I also was unimpressed.
I think it must have been an interesting... I always wondered what makes beeping noises, because everything beeps. And then before this was invented, there were no beeps. The beep didn't exist. Isn't that an extraordinary thing to think? Everything.
Yeah.
Because obviously he's demonstrating it as an alarm. So
yeah,
I presume that was probably the first thing that they thought of using it for. But then obviously when you miniaturize that alarm down to the size of a chip, then you can use it to make beeps. And then once they realise that, then everything beeps. And everything has beeped ever since the past 40 years. There's beeps everywhere. It's it's an astonishing development. What would we have done without beeps, Mark? Would we have had to put little bells on would people have digital watches with little bells on the side?
I suppose. Yeah, I suppose. Yeah. I mean, like, you can get incredibly expensive wristwatches that have little chimes in them that make a little alarm. But obviously that is, they're worth millions because it's incredibly difficult to do. And it's more art these days and anything like that. But you're right. I suppose you would. You'd have like, you'd go to cross the road and there would be like a Victorian school alarm bell hanging underneath the lights that would go, that would just, I suggest you. Yeah. I mean, like, it is interesting. It is always interesting when we watch these things and you go like, oh, this is the first time this is part of the reason we did this is because we want to see these moments where we're like, oh, well, people don't know how the world has changed from the broadcast of this bit of technology. And the world has changed. I suppose it's not the most dramatic of changes, but it has changed nonetheless, Russ, you are correct.
Yeah, it's not a dramatic change. No. It's a nice demonstration, though.
Yes, it is. Yes.
Because obviously, what he's saying is that you've in the past of the 1970s, everything you had to have a bell, which is a mechanical thing, takes a lot of power to do, and the parts can fail. And
I felt like that was over-egging the pudding slightly.
But you can replace all of that with what he calls a crystal, which it's more, they do that quite a lot. They do it later again in this program. They say crystal, but we would say chip or semiconductor, but they just say crystal. But it is a crystal. It's got quartz in it, and it uses a thing called piezoelectricity. And piezoelectric materials are interesting because they're crystals, and when you put them under stress, like you bend them, that makes them generate electricity. And if you do that, and because they're like a speaker, if you do the reverse, if you apply electricity, they bend. And that's what's happening here, because he's applying electricity and it's making the thing bend ever so slightly. And then when it's against something that amplifies that, then it makes a noise. And then if you make it vibrate at a certain frequency, at the same frequency that the thing is, then it makes it make a loud noise. So it's very clever and uses very little electricity. And as he said, has no real moving parts. I don't think a bending crystal counts as a moving part. So it's incredibly reliable. So it's all round great idea. The reason why he says the inventor is actually it was like a consortium of Japanese manufacturers. Because what's happening is that everyone knew about how these things worked, and the Americans and the Russians were doing things with it. They were using it for the sonar for their because the ping of a sonar is made by it because it works underwater. So so they were using it for their submarines and things. So they were doing it all as top secret technology, whereas the Japanese saw that it would have a use in sort of domestic appliances and things like that. So all their industry just clubbed together and said, let's all just research this and share all our results and not patent anything. So the Japanese just got on board with the whole thing, and they're the ones that invented all of this and made it so that it was, everyone could have it and it was cheap and everything. So good, thanks to Japanese for doing that. Otherwise, it would probably still be some sort of top secret American military equipment. Obviously, it's in everything these days, and not only fire alarms and beepers. The old PCs. You remember PCs? Their speakers used to be absolutely terrible, the internal speakers. Yeah. That was because they just relied on this to make sounds. That's why they were so bad.
That makes sense, yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking, it's quite piercing as well, isn't it, this alarm? So you're more likely to hear one of these alarms than you are a regular bell, I would say. So does that mean this is how many lives do you think this invention has saved from making sure that alarms are really loud and people can hear them compared to bells?
Well, it's definitely effective. I mean, we had a fire alarm at work about 6 months ago, and it was that noise that he demonstrated there. And it does really motivate you to leave.
Yeah.
It can be quite painful, actually. Especially if you're near it. It can be very sore in the ears. It's like, I think I will go. Thanks.
Yeah.
Point made.
So it's potentially could have saved millions of lives, Mark.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah. I mean, I know it feels like you're trying to load it up like a buckaroo donkey. I'm on board. I do agree, but yeah. No, it definitely saved lives. I have no doubt whatsoever.
Yeah.
I just don't think, the way he describes the current alarm bell situation, he basically seems to make it sound like it's some kind of waking nightmare of high energy costs and, I think he slightly overrates the pudding but at the same time, I suppose they don't necessarily appreciate appreciate just how, as you're right, everything bings and beeps. And even when we were doing the notes, I remember seeing you write, like, your dishwasher beeped as you were writing it, you know.
I think that Dutch appliances beep more than British appliances. I've got a theory.
Well, just, you know, they're less...
I never...
they're more unabashed, aren't they?
I never owned a washing machine that beeped in Britain, yet every washing machine I've had here beeps.
Oh, it's beeps. I think it beeps twice, though. That's it, though. And then that's it. You'll never hear it again.
And the last place I was what was it? It was the dishwasher beeped continuously until you emptied it. or at least open the door.
Yeah, that's not acceptable.
Is it?
Is everything in your house? Is it all Philips?
Yeah. When I can't get a Russell Hobbs, I have to get a Philips. That's it. That's the golden rule. I don't think Russell Hobbs make washing machines, as far as I know.
No, I don't think so. No, they just do kettles. Yeah. I'm sure and toasters.
Not sure they even do hobs, to be honest. Thinking about it, never even considered that.
I can. No, absolutely. Yeah, I agree. No, God, what a missed opportunity.
Yeah. Anyway, obviously there'll be more Russell Hobbs action later in this episode.
This is the world's most ambitious automatic people mover, servicing one of the world's biggest airports. Spreading itself freely across the vast plains of Texas, Dallas-Fort Worth opened for business in 1974. It now handles more than 19 million passengers a year. The capsules of the giant airport's futuristic transportation system cover 16,500 miles a day over a network which has 10 different routes and 27 stations.
The many terminals, the service areas, the hotel and the parking lots of this massive airport are all connected by these concrete troughs in which the automatic rubber-tired vehicles run, picking up their current and their control instructions from these conductor rails mounted in side walls. Now, it's the side walls which also steer the vehicle.
The lower of these wheels track the walls, directing the main driving wheels, while the smaller top wheels only come into play at the junctions, where they're guided by a single metal rail activated like a point.
Either the guidance wheels are trapped on the inside of this bar, pulling things this way. That's what happened then. But with the blade in this position, the guidance wheels are pushed on the outer edge, forcing the vehicle, and here comes another utility truck, to take the left-hand arm of the junction. Here we go.
It's the complexity of the layout which makes the Dallas-Fort Worth system unique. And it's this complexity which has caused most of its numerous problems. In the early days, it actually worked only half the time, and even today, one of the busiest members of the control team is Passenger Services Director Vicky Dowell. One of Vicky's jobs, organising conventional buses to rescue passengers who've been confused by the people mover.
Are you en route to Station 6? After you pick her up, would you go to overflow for overflow passenger, please?
10-4, I'll be arriving shortly.
In the same room, the system's drivers monitor the control board and guide their remote responsibilities. There are as many as 68 driverless vehicles on the track at any time, past unforeseen obstacles and breakdowns.
10-4, which will be your next switch for maintenance?
Though most of the bugs have now been ironed out of the network, the manufacturers have not been commissioned to build another. This system has lost out to a rival, one which started with a far more basic route. A simple there-and-back-again shuttle opened at Tampa in 1971. 15 million passengers a year now use this straightforward service, and from these simple beginnings with no complications like points, the design has slowly developed. There are now 5 systems, which are either shuttles or loops, like this one at a pleasure gardens in Virginia. Again, the track is concrete, but a single metal guidance beam and all the power and control circuits are mounted centrally between the 2 running surfaces. Only after a decade of gradual development are its designers planning anything as complicated as Dallas-Fort Worth.
Of course, the idea of running a rubber-tired vehicle on a concrete slab can hardly be described as revolutionary. But the fact that these systems have taken so long to develop and so long to get right indicate how difficult it is to develop a transport system that is cheaper and more reliable than a conventional bus or tram. But the People Mover story goes on. It certainly, as you'll learn in our next report, doesn't end here in America.
Love a bit of monorail content, Mark. It's been a while since you had a monorail on here, isn't it?
Oh,
really
delight.
It really is it has that very sort of Tomorrow's World thing of being a something that seems futuristic but in a old-fashioned way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That everyone's working on the assumption that in the future we are going to be absolutely surrounded with monorails as far as the eye can see, and then they just never. They still to this day only ever exist in airports and theme parks.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, the two places that he mentioned.
Yeah. Astonishing.
Oh, and one German city. That's it.
Yes. Wuppertal.
Wuppertal, indeed.
Shout out to my friend Ildiko, who's been to Wuppertal a few times recently because she's been doing an art show there, and in order to brag, sent me a postcard from Wuppertal because she knew of
That's disgusting behaviour.
Yes, yeah. We'll have to go there at some point, Mark. We'll do a works trip there.
Love it.
Yeah.
We'll see if expenses will pay for it.
We could broadcast live from one of the carriages.
That's a good idea. we can do a piece. Yeah.
Anyway, so this is interesting. Because I think the main interesting thing is this episode's from 1979. Michael Rodd has gone to Dallas Fort Worth Airport to show us this monorail. Obviously I've researched this monorail. This monorail opened in 1974. So what is, has Michael Rodd just gone to America for some other reason, flown to Fort Worth, and they've decided to put together a VT on the monorail while they're there that they can just insert into an episode at some point? Because what's the connection? But what's
the Red Letter Media boys that they refer to as it shooting the rodeo?
Oh, really?
Yeah, that idea of like you'll watch a really crap B movie with like no budget whatsoever that only films in someone's garage, and then all of a sudden it'll cut to them at the rodeo, and their theory is that's because there just happened to be a rodeo on in town that they could sneak a camera into. So you shoot the rodeo, you shoot the real thing that's happening, and then you try and make it work in your film to add production value. So I got two theories based on your question there. One, the Dallas-Fort Worth monorail is definitely being presented here as a relative failure, I think, actually. The whole point about this is that it is overly complex and breaks down a lot, which is interesting, because then he talks about ones that are a bit more successful. The other thing is, he ends the piece by saying, but the People Mover story goes on, and certainly, as you'll learn in our next report, it doesn't end here in America. It actually feels like this is...
Oh, yeah.
Like this is the foundation course to whatever their actual piece is that is not the next item like you imagine.
Yeah, the next part is nothing about it at all.
No, it's nothing about it at all. No, it's horrifically boring, as we'll discover. As let me tease the audience for us. It's not, but like it's not about People Mover. So he leaves on a cliffhanger. So at some point, either the next episode or at some other point, people are supposed to remember back to this one.
Yeah.
To understand the context of the next piece, which is. I think explains it, but it feels like it should be literally the next segment.
Or they chopped it out of another episode, an older episode. They chopped it out of an older episode, and they didn't have anything else this week, so they've just...
It's filler, yeah.
Yeah, maybe they're just scrabbling around this week. That's why they've got a sixth form project. They've got a sixth form project. They've got an old piece that they didn't use before. The next section is rubbish, and it's just Judith talking about a book.
And it's far too long, as is the one two after, which is like more interesting, but far too long. Yeah, maybe they are flanneling. Maybe because I did say to you, it's like it's weird that this episode felt both interesting and boring, but like not in a kind of the grey area it often is, but like it seemed like literally the needle flips from one extreme to the other. So yeah, maybe this is a bit of a part spin special.
Yeah. Oh, I think you're right there, Mark. I love it when we realise things live on air. But yeah, I mean, do you think Michael Rodd's the presenter that has spent most time amongst concrete? If I picture Michael Rodd in my head, he's always surrounded by concrete, and he is in this.
Was it Runcorn he visited? But also he's the one who also does. If you remember when we did watch that episode that was expressly made because the strike was on, so it was a part spin special.
Yeah.
There was that montage of previous items from Tomorrow's World of odd kind of transport contraptions, and Rod was at the center of the vast majority of them.
Yeah.
Even the one where he was driving the car on the tracks and he crashed off. So I think that anytime there's some kind of non-serious transport solution being proposed, they send Rod off. And I think a lot of them just happen to be in and around concrete-based locations.
Yeah. He's the non-serious transport expert.
He's the non-serious transport expert. Well, I cannot emphasize that much enough.
Yeah, because if it was like a cool, something cool, obviously Willy Woody would be all over it if he was still around. Yeah.
In fact, I have no doubt that where does Judith Hann reveals later on she's just come back from the Philippines.
Yeah.
It's like she was probably looking at some serious transport solutions there.
Yeah, jet skis or something.
Yeah.
The other big thing I'd like to point out about this segment, literally, is the baseball hat that man is wearing when he steps out of. There's a scene of some members of the public stepping out of one carriage of this monorail. And that man, what's going on with that man's baseball hat, Mark? It's
huge.
What it reminded me of is that, that episode of The Simpsons where they get Homer to go undercover and they give him a giant cowboy hat with a camera inside it. This guy looks like he might have a TV camera under his baseball hat.
I mean, I like that. My initial suspicion was he was trying to smuggle people into Texas.
I've never seen such a large, that's a clear. The top of his hat, I would say, is at least a foot above his eye line.
Well, if you take two fingers and you put them around his face, so that you top and tail it, and then move your fingers up, that hat is as big as his whole face. on top of it, like he's doubling his height. Yeah, it's perched on his hair.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, do you think that's all hair? Maybe he's got huge hair and he just stuffs it all up in there.
I suppose he could be like America's whitest Rastafarian. But he doesn't seem the type, to be fair. He looks way too suspicious. He does look like he's smuggling something. Hair. He's smuggling hair. Yeah. That's what he's smuggling. Somebody else's hair.
Long, beautiful hair. Do you think if Dallas-Fort Worth Airport was built today, they would have any kind of public transport on it, or do you think Texas has gone so far that it would just be each plane would have its own car park and everyone just drove there themselves in their own pickups?
Yeehaw, Russ! That's exactly what would happen. Yeah,
I feel like any kind of public transport would be considered communist these days in Texas.
Yep. Yeah. It was Governor Greg Abbott. He'd have no truck with anything except trucks.
We heard of these woke monorails.
Have you? They're socialist communist monorails. Yeah. Have you ever been to Dallas-Fort Worth Airport?
I'm pretty sure I have. Yes, because it's one of the main connection hubs, isn't it? I think it's like the second after Atlanta, the second most second most popular connection place. Yeah. So I would have done, but
and no memories of it whatsoever. No.
No, I've been to Dallas and Fort Worth, but I drove there because obviously, as you remember, when I was in Dallas, Mark, I phoned you from the grassy knoll.
You did phone me from the grassy knoll, Russ. You did.
Yeah.
You told me you were looking for clues.
Yeah. Yeah, and I went to Fort Worth. I actually preferred Fort Worth to Dallas, to be honest, because it's more cowboy-y. That's more fun.
Well, that's where the Dallas Cowboys Stadium is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like it's a kind of a bit more of a middle class place, isn't it? Like real people, real cowboys live there.
Yes, yeah. Do you have any memories of Dallas-Fort Worth Airport? You've been there as well, haven't you?
I do. I suppose the reason I ask is I have a profound memory from Dallas-Fort Worth. I had nothing to do with the airport whatsoever because Josie used to live and work in Arkansas, so that would be the place that would be like that was where I changed. Strangely, you can't fly to rural Arkansas direct from London Heathrow. Right. You do have to change somewhere else. So I stopped off in Dallas-Fort Worth, and I'm aware of the fact that it was a big giant airport, and I don't really remember much about it. Except that when I went to the loo and checked my phone and turned it on and got the Wi-Fi, it's when I learned Bob Hoskins had died.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Tragic.
So I actually felt a bit sad.
Bobo?
Bob Hoskins. Yeah. Boho. Yeah, he's gone. Taken too soon, Russ.
Yes, yeah.
So I will always remember being in Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas, because that's when I learned. The big BH himself. Yes. The big Benson and Hedges, he left us. Yeah.
Oh. I doubt you could ever go back, Mark. I mean, it'd be too painful.
It's just too painful, yeah. I can barely go into any toilet these days when I think about Bob Hoskins' death.
It's good to talk. So, yeah, this monorail, was officially known as the Vought Air Trans, and it operated. See, I told you it was woke. It operated between 1974 and 2005, and between those years, they reckon it carried 250 million passengers and drove 97 million miles, which means it could have made it to the sun a little bit even further than the sun, actually. If, it was going in one direction. But when it opened in 1974. It only, and as you say, Rod mentions its unreliability. It only worked reliably 56% of the time, which is not great. It's not great. That is not great.
No.
And the company Vought that built it, the bid they put in was for $34 million, and they couldn't ask for any more money than that. So, and it cost them a lot more to make it. So they took a $22.5 million loss on building it.
Wow.
But rather than scrapping it, which I think what tends to happen with things is people go, oh, it doesn't work, scrap it. But actually, to their credit, Dallas-Fort Worth Airport didn't do that. They went, no, okay, we've got it now. We'll set about trying to make it better. So they did. They improved it over the years. By 1988, it was operating 24 hours a day, and its reliability was 99.8%, Mark.
That was the feel-good story of the year, Russ.
Yes.
Yeah, wow. Vindication.
Absolutely, yeah.
That was very impressive. So what do they replace it with then? So when I was there, just a different form of new people mover?
So, yeah, in 2005, it was replaced by the DFW Skylink, which is much faster. So the Air Trans could go 17 miles per hour. The Skylink can go 37 miles per hour.
Ooh.
So that's going to get you to duty free and back in less than half the time. But the trains on that one are the same trains that you use at Heathrow Terminal 5. So if you've ever been to Heathrow Terminal 5, you probably you can just imagine you just put a cowboy hat on, and you can imagine you're at Fort Worth.
Oh, next time I'm smuggling hair through that airport, I'll think about what it'd be like in Texas.
Yes, exactly, yeah. And then obviously he then shows us the other much more dangerous looking monorail, because there's no side guards of any kind, and it's
for tipping.
So that's he says a Pleasure Gardens in Virginia. That's Busch Gardens, Virginia.
Oh, I did wonder if it was Busch Gardens.
Yeah, Williamsburg, Busch Gardens. Yeah, that's interesting because from the outside it just looks like a normal bus, because it's got rubber tires and there's no side rails, so it looks like there's just somebody's postman patting it like perfect driving.
Absolutely.
But apparently it is not. It isn't that dangerous. It does have like some sort of guide rail that's keeping it on there. That's called the Eagle One. That's not there either. That closed in 1998, opening in 1975. The only interesting thing I could find about the Eagle One was that in 1990, a 19-year-old mother was arguing with her boyfriend and threw her baby onto the tracks in front of the monorail. Luckily, the operator slammed on the brakes, but the baby fell 8 feet because she had to throw it over a fence in order to get it onto the tracks, and obviously she said it slipped out of her hands, and they said it doesn't slip out of your hands and then fly over a high fence. So yeah, it turned out she later admitted that she was trying to prove a point to the father that she could do whatever she wanted with the baby, but they both got done with child endangerment, which seems a bit harsh on the man, because I feel like he was fairly blameless in this incident.
I mean, I suppose he didn't do it, but maybe he was kind of like, "Go on, I dare you, I dare you."
Oh yeah, maybe, yeah. Anyway, the baby's fine, so don't worry about that. No,
good. I respect her commitment.
Might have a slight phobia of monorails these days. I don't know whether remembers the incident or not,
or just being dropped.
Yeah. But interestingly, I was thinking, why monorails? What's all this thing with monorails at this time in America?
Yeah,
it is to do with in American cities the move to the suburbs. So in lots of cities in America, everyone suddenly in the 60s moved out to the suburbs, in the 50s and 60s moved out to the suburbs.
So is that what they call the white flight?
And obviously the centres, the urban centres became more run down. And the town planners realised that the only places where this didn't happen were places like Boston and New York, which had decent mass transit
public
systems.
Transport,
yeah.
integrated. Yeah.
So then they started going, well, what we need to do to stop all of this, urban sprawl and ruining our city centres is that we need to install mass transit in all of those cities. But installing a subway is incredibly expensive because you have to dig holes. So let's build monorails instead. And this coincided with both the end of the Apollo program and the end of the Vietnam War. So all of the aerospace companies had nothing to do. So they all got involved in these projects. And so it's like a combination of town planners wanting mass transit and aerospace companies having nothing to do that sort of combined to create this sort of like massive sort of push for monorails everywhere. But obviously failed because Americans love their cars too much, Mark.
That's really interesting, though.
Now we're going to transport you back in time 15 years. How many of you remember this?
Egg. Barrage. Limit. Big.
The message was clear. Forget C-A-T spells cat and use flashcards like this instead. An American doctor, Glenn Doman, had discovered a method of teaching the mentally retarded, which applied to ordinary children, could have them reading before the age of 2. Well, now Dr. Doman's gone a stage further. Today his new book is published, Teach Your Baby Maths. He believes that babies can be taught to understand numbers directly, rather than by using symbols as we do. For example, what number is this? And this? Well, that's 5. But what about this number? No idea? You can't do it, but a young child could, given a few weeks' training.
Where's 39? Where's 39? Where's 39? You're right, that's 39. Perfect. How did you know that? Okay, let's try another one like that. Can you tell me where 96 is? Where's 96? Perfect. You're so smart at these.
How long would it take you to count 96 dots? Far longer than that child, who can go on to do quite complicated sums in his head because he deals directly with the quantities involved and not the symbols of those quantities as we do. For example, think of 17 plus 19. We do it by adding the 9 and the 7 and carrying the 1. But a child sees the answer straight away. 17 plus 19 equals 36. But why teach them to add up at all at such a young age? Surely they're better off just playing with toys and enjoying themselves. Well, Dr. Doman's attitude is that mathematics is a marvellous game for 2-year-olds. Most toys, after all, are devised by adults to keep babies quiet, or at the very best, entertained, while parents are busy. But at 18 months and 2 years old, a child is into everything because he's desperately eager to learn, preferably in the company of his parents. But unfortunately, by 7 or 8, this intense curiosity has largely burnt itself out, so the child has to be cajoled into learning boring old maths. By that age, I'm afraid, we've missed the boat. The new method's taught by showing the child flashcards like these, beginning with the simplest and progressing to cards which could have as many as 100 dots. Only then is the child taught the symbols that correspond to the quantity of the dots.
Okay. 100 minus 30 minus 20 multiplied by 2 minus 7 equals 93 and 75. It was 93. Okay, Jason, esos son más difíciles, son números, okay? Okay. Half of 92 equals? Okay, 46 and 51. That was 46.
So after about a year, Dr. Doman believes the baby would not only be able to do quite complicated sums in his head, he'd even be able to write the answer down in numerical symbols that his poor, slow-witted parents could understand. Now here's Kieran in the orchards of Kent.
So, Mark, I think we both agreed that this segment was terrible and boring, and yeah. I actually my quack alarm went off quite swiftly while watching it, and I'm just going to say I won't go to it right now, but after researching the background to this, I would say that this is actually not only a bad segment. I would say it's irresponsible to the point of being quite dangerous.
Oh, wow, amazing.
So yeah, but let's talk about a segment first. It's Judith is just pushing a book, basically, isn't she? Really?
Yeah, it's quite shocking.
Yeah, and so we look back at a segment from, was it 15 years ago?
She said 15 years ago. Yeah, 63 is that?
Yeah. No, it can't be 63. Did the program
64? Sorry.
Yeah. So which have been when did the program start? Is 64, didn't it?
Yeah. So it must be because this is 79, right?
Yeah.
Trying to remember. Yeah. So 15 years. So right at the beginning of the show, actually.
Yes.
When arguably they knew no better. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. But surely it's common sense to see that what Glenn Doman is claiming is happening isn't happening.
Yeah.
They're showing children flashcards, and then the child is recognising the flashcard and then saying a word, right? That is all that is happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, Glenn Doman is claiming, his original claim was that he was teaching them to read, and then now he's claiming that he's teaching them to do maths. He isn't doing that. He's just teaching children to recognise a pattern.
Pattern recognition.
Yeah. That is
learn
all
by
it is.
rote.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is all it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I find it quite annoying that no one involved in making this segment has not just immediately realised that's what's happening.
It's a bit disconcerting. The thing is, the first time I watched this, I found it boring. Second time I watched it, I actually actively hated it. Very rarely do I watch something on one of these episodes that I really kind of think like, no, I find the experience hateful. And of course, I didn't have the advantage of doing the research, so my hatred was uninformed. But like, I just had a bad feeling about the whole thing, and I found it. I just knew I was being sold a lie, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it because obviously I deliberately don't go off and have a look.
Yeah.
Beyond the fact that it was very clear to me that the children were just memorizing. They weren't learning anything. They were being praised for having successfully remembered one card over another.
Yeah.
And I just thought, I don't understand. And obviously, I suppose what little evidence I would have needed, of course, is the fact that you and I did not learn to read or write this way.
Yeah. It would be strange if a baby could learn that way and then not a 5-year-old or whatever.
Anyone else? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Any other age.
Yeah. That should be the way that learning shouldn't work that way around. It should be. Yeah,
they're not learning; they're memorizing.
Yes, obviously there are some people in the world who can just look at a load of things and immediately...
We've all seen Rain Man.
Yeah, immediately tell you how many are there. But those people have very specific and, unusual brain chemistries that not normal people have.
They are neurodivergent, absolutely.
Yes.
They have special skills that are unique to a certain approach to thinking.
Yeah, but that's not what's happening here. Because those flashcards come with the book. That's the thing. So those flashcards...
That I didn't realise. So it is just the same over and over again.
So it's the same over and again. So the children are learning the same cards every time. So the pattern of dots is always the same. So the 16 dots are always in that pattern. It's not.
And of course, on the back,
it's not 16 random.
The reverse is the number 16 for the adults to understand, which means that they are holding it up the same way to read the number 16.
Yes.
So they're not even rotating it.
Yeah. So the child is just seeing the same pattern. So it is no different than showing them the number 16.
16, yeah.
And then remembering that to say 16 when they see the number 16.
Because reading is just pattern recognition.
Yes, exactly, yeah. So, I mean, I don't know what else to say about the presentation of this segment, apart from it's
good. I am delighted to know it is utter quackery. That's good.
Yes, it is. It is quack, quackity quack. Snake oil.
Yeah. But as a result now, I find myself slightly more upset that this is broadcast, because quite a lot of this is primetime real estate that's being given over to, A, the selling of a book, which I find a bit tawdry and unpleasant, and B, as you say, quackery. I mean, the weird thing is, like, you and I have long said, as many listeners will know, have long said that the aspect of tomorrow's world that we find least compelling and entertaining are health items. But at least when Judith Hann does a public health item, they tend to be interesting. They tend to be public service, and she tends to really handle them quite well.
Yeah.
And but here it really feels like, you know, if you didn't know better, you'd say Judith Hann is a true believer in this, and she's proselytizing.
Yeah, she's really blotted her copybook there, hasn't she?
She has, yeah.
So I'm going to
let's hope, you know, those pages don't get mixed in with some of these cards. There's some very confused children out there.
So Glenn Doman, along with Carl Delicato, that's a
made-up name.
Founded the Institutes for the Achievement of Human Potential, which they shortened to just the Institutes. I don't know.
Oh, stop. Oh, plural?
Yeah, it's plural. Yeah, I don't know why. It's in Philadelphia. They started in 1955, and their philosophy doesn't sound too bad. The philosophy of the Institutes consists of several interrelated beliefs. that every child has genius potential. Stimulation is the key to unlocking a child's potential. Teaching should commence at birth. The younger the child, the easier the learning process. Children naturally love to learn. Parents are their children's best teacher. Teaching and learning should be joyous, and teaching and learning should never involve testing. Which sounds like a reasonably, it doesn't sound dangerous or anything like that.
No, yeah.
Now, it was originally set up for what they call brain-injured children. So the idea was, to them, brain injured could be anything. It could be, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, even like autism, or any of those sort of things. For them, was brain injured. But they do. I mean, they're still around now. Doman is dead, but his daughter runs it now. They're still there, but they also offer programs for what they call well children. These sort of parents that want their child to be a genius quite often sign up to it. Obviously, it costs them money, Mark. You might be surprised to know.
No, it's not free.
No. But so the key to their theory of all of the various different treatments they do is a thing called recapitulation theory, which was posited way back when in the 40s, I think, originally. And the idea of recapitulation theory is the human brain as it grows from the embryo and into the child and into the adult goes through the same stages as evolution. so when it's like a little embryo, it has the brain of a fish, and then it has the brain of a reptile, and then it has the brain of a mammal, and then eventually develops into the brain of a human, right? Mm-hmm. Which is obviously complete and utter cobblers. It's a completely made up theory. That's not true at all. So what they're essentially saying is that these brain injured children don't have human brains. They have the brain of like a mammal or a fish or whatever. And their brains need to be humanized by giving them exercises.
Oh my God. Are you serious?
Yeah. So
this is still going.
It's still going. Yeah.
I don't feel good about this, Russ.
The American Academy of Pediatrics, their sort of statement on these people is this treatment is based on an outmoded and oversimplified theory of brain development. Current information does not support the claims of proponents that this treatment is efficacious, and its continued use is unwarranted. The demands and expectations placed on families are so great that in some cases their financial resources, Mark, may be depleted substantially, and parental and sibling relationships could be stressed. So, obviously they do various treatments to treat various things. One of the things that they do includes a thing called gagging, which is when they make the child breathe into a plastic bag until it gasps for breath. This is based on the belief that it will cause maximum use of their lungs and thus maximise oxygen circulation to their brain.
But that makes no sense.
Yeah. And then I saw somebody discussing it they were discussing this on a forum somewhere, and somebody said, I have a good friend who has cerebral palsy who was put through the programme, and it was an awful scam. Whenever she goes to see a new doctor, they can see that she was part of the programme right away because of the involuntary movements that she makes.
Wow.
So it's literally traumatising kids to the point that it affects their adult lives, like these things they're doing.
Christ.
They actually instruct parents who go on the program. They have always. This is a bit like Scientology, actually. This bit,
yeah. Just the fact that they call themselves the Institute, gives me cult vibes.
If parents are on the program, because obviously other scientists have over the years, since the 60s, have gone. We want to test these things scientifically.
Yeah,
and the institutes specifically tell parents on the program not to engage in any scientific tests of what's going on. So it's like proper cult type stuff.
Oh, this is awful.
However, you can still buy this book, How to Teach Your Baby Maths by Clen Doman. It's on Amazon for £11.85. Over 13 million copies sold. So it's a thin end of a wedge, really, Mark. So obviously you're not going to damage your children teaching them maths, but it's kind of like an entry sort of thing to this whole other part of the Institute's work, which is all based on absolute cobblers, cod science stuff, and is quite damaging to all involved. So, yeah.
Oy. I mean, I don't want to get sued, but I mean, it reminds you, thinking about Scientology. Scientology, like the two gateways into Scientology. One is the book Dianetics, which obviously doesn't contain Scientology, but does.
Yeah.
And is about you and your mental health. And then the other is the personalities. The Oxford Capacity Personality Test that they give outside the stores.
Yeah, I always wanted to do one of those, actually.
Well, they will find your rune, Russ. They will find the weakness that you have in you that they can then sell you the solution to. Yeah. Let me put it that way. Oh, this is so sad.
Yeah.
I mean, and the sad thing is, like, these parents, they just want the best for their child, who are normal human children with human brains, and yet... Oh yeah, that's awful, Russ. Well done for doing that. I knew there was something bad about it. I did not expect it to be quite as bleak as it was. Should we talk about apples?
Yeah.
That's really shit.
In another few months or so, we should all be enjoying this year's crop of British apples. And very nice. Very nice they should be too. But orchards like this one, all over the country, are facing a creeping threat to their harvests. This is it. It's a bug called the red spider mite, although actually he's brown. His presence can mean not only poorer quality fruit, but also a smaller crop. But he's not after the fruit. He wants the sap from the leaves. And when he's around, that's what they look like. A bad attack of red spider mites can also hit the fruit buds, which in turn affects the following year's crop. Now, all these little red eggs here are this year's spring collection of red spider mites. When these and successive generations hatch, there could be as many as 50,000 of them, all chewing away on the leaves of this one tree. The red spider mite's effect can be devastating, and the only thing stopping him from running riot at the moment are pesticides. But they become less effective by the year as more and more pests of every kind develop resistance to them. Mind you, before pesticides ever came along, there were still red spider mites, and there were still fruit trees. So what stopped them then? These did. They're called predatory mites, and they preserve the apple crop in a very simple fashion. They eat red spider mites. Given the chance, a predator like this will eat 3 spider mites a day. The reason they don't do that quite so much these days is because the very chemicals that are supposed to control the pests and protect the trees from disease are also slaughtering the predators. It's a classic vicious circle created entirely by science. But for the first time, scientists at the East Malling Research Station are hoping to protect this year's apple crop by not killing the red spider mite. They're going to let the predators do it for them. Scientists here have been breeding predatory mites on glasshouse potted plants like this. Now, when they think the time is right, probably early summer, they'll cut shoots like this and simply place them on the tree. Then the fight is on. This is the predatory mite in action, moving in on a red spider mite. The risk in all this is that there'll be too many red spider mites for them to take on. But of course, as they're not using pesticides, there'll be more predators too. Quite simply, it's biological warfare. But it's also a gamble that could be crucial, because as more and more pests resist the chemicals that are supposed to kill them, man might soon have little choice except to call up the predators that did the job perfectly well in the first place. But whether science has upset the balance between the goodies and the baddies in the meantime remains to be seen.
I think this is the first segment we've ever seen where essentially the solution is the absence of science.
Yes, I think you're absolutely right, yeah.
If everybody had done nothing,
we wouldn't have a problem.
Then we wouldn't have a problem. And the solution is to stop doing science. It just let nature get on with itself. That's essentially what you're saying, isn't it?
Yeah, that's exactly correct. Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of like a reverse Tomorrow's World segment. It's like it's opposite world, Tomorrow's World. Yeah, it's funny.
World tomorrow. Yes, no, it's true. I hadn't even thought of that. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, it's like, well, if we don't use pesticides, maybe these predatory mites will kill the red mites, kind of like they used to, guys.
yeah, before we killed them all. Yeah.
But if that doesn't happen, we'll just wipe them all out.
Yeah.
It's almost like we haven't really learned our lesson by the end of this.
Yeah. Obviously, the thing I enjoyed the most in this is that the predator mites were kind of see-through, a bit like...
They were, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know whether they made like clicking noises quietly. If you really listen carefully. Yeah, I mean, this is much of a segment, is it? It's Kieran wandering around an orchard in East Malling, home of the world's premier Apple Research Institute, and he's got that one of those lovely 1970s, early 80s anorak things on with the furry collar and the orange lining. It's always found very, very evocative of the period. And he's telling us about the horrors of red spider mites, which is someone who my parents always used to listen to Gardener's Question Time on Radio 4 and watch Gardener's World on BBC 2. Red spider mites seem to me to be like the Nazis of the insect world, in that they get blamed for absolutely everything. And if something bad's gone wrong, it's probably a red spider mite that's involved. Right? That's it.
So just thinking about your analogy, it almost sounds like you're saying that Nazis are unfairly blamed.
I was thinking about that when I was saying it. I was thinking that doesn't actually make... that actually doesn't work at all, does it?
Yeah, I get your point. They were responsible for a lot. Which they do. I mean, they suck these plants dry. I suppose, really, Russell. I suppose I have been waiting for you to out yourself as a red mite apologist. The signs have been there for a long time.
Yeah. I like the name Red Spider Mites. I think. Yeah. It also sounds like Red Sky at Night as well. I think that's right. Red Spider Mites, Shepherd's Delight.
It does have a nice timbre to it. Yeah. Anyway, sorry.
But yeah, for some reason, Kieran's got them on his hand. I don't know. He doesn't explain why. Why they're on his hand?
No need.
They don't live on hands. They live on plants. They live on plants.
Yeah, because it then kind of does a kind of a wide cut to like the actual mites on a leaf, which is like you didn't need to have them on your hand. Except he just like that bit where like he pointed his hand. It was like he could have held up a leaf.
Yeah. Actually,
a twig or whatever.
That does make me think. I always hate that in nature programs. In nature programs, when they're demonstrating, I don't know, like how a wasp stinging or a mosquito biting or whatever, or a leech, and they always have like a close up of someone's hand or arm and a close up of the insect actually doing that. And I always think, someone's had to pose for that. Oh, that's horrible. Like,
don't do that.
Yeah, like it's bad enough if it accidentally happens to you, but to actually, sit there and expectantly wait for this thing to do this to you.
Anticipate it.
Just for the purpose of filming this piece. I don't know. Makes me feel weird. I don't know. Don't like it. But I mean, red spider mites, they eat apple plants, kill them. All we need to do is just let the predators loose and they will kill the red spider mites and we'll be laughing. And that's
it, isn't it?
that really
Hooray!
Is it. I have nothing interesting to say red spider mites, apart from the fact that Kieran makes a point of saying, which aren't actually red, they're brown, doesn't he?
Yes, he does say
that.
Right,
go to Google image search and look up red spider mites and tell me what colour they are on grid.
I'm expecting to be bombarded by brown, Russell. Hang on, red spider mites. Here we go. Gosh. they do seem to be kind of red.
Yeah. I would say quite like vividly
consistently
red.
Yeah.
I mean, is it just...
I mean, some of them are very red.
Is it just because it's the 1970s and everything was brown and you couldn't have bright colours back then?
Quite possibly.
Even the red spider mites were still brown. I don't know. Yeah. But these days, now we've got...
They've had a glow up.
Now we've got HDR. Red spider mites are very much red, as far as I can tell. Unless all those pictures on the internet are fake. I don't know.
Everyone's eyesight back then was like 16 mil, right? And now it's all 4K.
Yeah. But and the other thing I would say is that these predatory mites, are big business. So rather than just letting nature take its course with them, you can buy tubes of them, Mark, over the internet. So if you go to ladybirdplantcare.co.uk, you get a tube of 2,000 predator mites, presumably fully tooled up with shoulder cannons and...
of course, yeah.
And that would only cost you 18 quid delivered. So that's something to bear in mind, isn't it? If you ever find yourself
£18 for 2,000
a tube of 2,000 live predatory mites. Wow. So you have to, as soon as you get delivery, obviously empty them out onto your plant because they don't really survive in the tube for very long. But
just missed your birthday.
But they reproduce faster than red spider mites. They double in population every 2 days, and they can eat 5 red spider mite adults and 20 larvae per day. So,
interesting. That's gone because I think Kieran says 3 in the program.
Yeah, well, they've got hungrier these days. Yeah.
So who kills the predatory mites then?
I don't know. Do they need to be killed, Mark? That's the thing.
I don't know. Probably not. Because they don't eat the plants. They eat the mites.
They go back to their ship afterwards. But yes.
With their trophies.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But other than that, that's all I have to say about this, Mark. I don't really think there's anything else we can say about it.
Great, let's move on, Russ.
Let's move on to our favourite subject.
Yeah.
If one of these stopped functioning, it could cost us £1 million every 24 hours. Britain's fragile economy is dependent on North Sea oil, just as North Sea oil is dependent on structures like this platform in the Forties field. We're only now learning just how vulnerable these structures are, not just from bad weather, but from corrosion, marine life, and from structural failure. And what now concerns many oilmen is the realization that things are going wrong and we're not as good as we thought we were at detecting them.
Platforms like this one are providing the clues. The North Sea's original gas platform from the West Sole field, shut down last year after 12 years' service, has given engineers their first chance to examine how a man-made structure stands up to more than a decade in the North Sea. There was an enthusiastic scramble for samples. This one is one of the few bits left intact. Now, one thing which surprised the experts was the amount of barnacles and marine growth. Near the surface, biologists found a thick band of mussels. Lower down, a layer of sea anemones. And then, even deeper, a layer which proved a popular haven for, amongst the barnacles and tubeworms, starfish. Now, that build-up of mussels, and it happens on almost every platform, could, on the smaller structures, put tremendous strain on the metalwork. Somehow, the mussels have got to go. Now, today, divers laboriously strip off these large quantities of mussels. But starfish love eating mussels, if only they could get to them past one of their arch-enemies, the sea anemone, who can sting them. Well, armed with this information, it's reckoned the divers might do better cutting away a path through the softer anemones. Like in the orchard, biological warfare again. Leave the starfish to take care of the mussel problem.
But the main reason for bringing the platform ashore was to look at corrosion, because corrosion can lead to metal fatigue and to cracks. Had 12 years' exposure to the North Sea dangerously weakened this structure? Well, minor cracks in welds have been discovered, and the work continues to assess the overall condition of the steelwork. But whatever the results turn out to be, this structure would have been in much worse condition had it not been for the services of lumps of metal like this one. This is actually a piece of aluminium. It's called a sacrificial anode. It actually encourages the seawater to attack it, leaving the steel of the platform alone. Humphrey Davy invented the sacrificial anode 150 years ago, but I doubt whether he would ever realise that they would need to be as big as this if they were going to protect the platforms of the North Sea. Now, metal in seawater corrodes because, just like this little plate, it acts like a battery. It actually produces a small electric current, and in so doing, transfers positive ions from the metal into the seawater, which acts as an electrolyte. The result is an eating away the corrosion of that metal. What Davy suggested was actually adding extra pieces of metal electrically more sensitive than steel, zinc or later aluminium, which could be eaten away first, leaving the steel in the structure untouched. And that's the protection that we've given to this second piece of steel in our test tank. This is a lump of aluminium standing alongside the sheet of steel, and though both these two pieces have been in this test tank of salt water since about 9 o'clock this morning, you can see the one which is having to fend for itself is already considerably more corroded than the one which has the protection of the sacrificial anode. Because though exactly the same thing is happening to this second piece of steel, the positive ions are coming from the anode, which is sacrificing itself, leaving the steel, the important part of the structure, untouched. The disadvantage of this technique, though, in the North Sea is the enormous amount of extra metal, as we've seen, that sometimes has to be used. 1,500 of those half-ton anodes in some cases. Well, there is another method. Here in this third demonstration, we've got much the same setup as the second, a steel plate and an anode, but between them we've actually got an electric circuit with a current flowing. Now this forms negative ions on the structure of the steel, counteracting the production of the positive ions, which will disappear into the salt water. So our third sample is surviving well in our test tank, but so too in this case is the anode. And that's the beauty of this system. The anode, because it doesn't get eaten away, can be much smaller than the Humphrey Davy variety. But of course it must be 18 months or more before the electric current can be wired up to this, which has meanwhile been sitting in the sea. It's a long time before the generators can be put on the finished platform. What's more, there's now evidence that a technique like this, fine in theory, has in practice become something of a nightmare. There's a platform off the coast of New Zealand, which, despite being protected in this way, still corroded so badly that divers had to install 600 tons of good old sacrificial anodes to save it.
Not that the North Sea has been free of corrosion problems. In 1975, an explosion in the Echo Fisk field killed 3 people. It was caused by a pipe containing hot oil, corroding the most vulnerable area of all, at the water's surface, where the metal is under attack, not only from the sea, but from frosts and high winds. But problems can happen anywhere, so North Sea platforms have to be inspected constantly. But the Fortis platform, for instance, is as tall as a post office tower. A complete inspection is a vast undertaking, so in practice, only areas believed to be vulnerable get looked at in detail. But remote vehicles carrying underwater video cameras are now taking the place of divers, particularly on inspections of the really deep platform structures. Machines like Smarty, which can be propelled in any direction, providing vision around 360 degrees, all by remote control from the surface. The surprising thing is its size. Because this is the real thing. And look how small it is, even though it's carrying 3 cameras and their attendant hardware. You can see one of them there at the front. And these are the kind of pictures it can produce. The figures at the bottom of the screen are to identify the depth and the compass bearing of the structure being examined. But as soon as a crack is suspected, further detailed tests have to be done. And this is where there is now real concern. Because in a recent trial, a cracked structure was thrown into Peterhead Harbour, and researchers tried out all the available equipment. Now, even though everyone knew the cracks were there, the machines couldn't always pick them up, and those results caused more than a few red faces.
So there's plenty of scope for new ideas, and this could be one of them. It's an acoustic camera, which can work in murky waters like this, because a high-frequency sound energy beam is reflected off a sample of metal which we've dropped into the end of this tank. Now, a receiving tube at this end of the apparatus converts those reflections into a television picture. Should there be a crack, a concentration of the pattern of reflections, and there it is clearly in the centre of the screen, will show up on the image. But as yet, of course, an acoustic camera, like so many other techniques, needs a diver to operate it. What the oil companies want is some method of continuously monitoring the entire structure without using divers. And there are such systems. One, for instance, monitors the natural vibrations of the metal structure, which, surprisingly perhaps, don't alter even when the wind and wave conditions do, but which do change noticeably if any part of the steelwork is broken. At the moment, though, this technique can only detect serious damage after it's happened. It's a technique which still needs several years of development before it can do the more useful job of pinpointing the trouble spots before things go wrong. So, if you think this is the usual Tomorrow's World story with technology holding out the promise of a happy ending, you're wrong, for the moment at least. With time now against them, engineers still have to develop systems which can find weaknesses before the North Sea does. If they fail, it will be our economy which will suffer.
No word of a lie. Is that the longest segment we've had? Or does it just feel it?
It did feel like time was stretching.
Yeah.
into the distance.
It's like being a child and being asked to wait 10 minutes and it feeling like days pass.
I am concerned though, Mark, because obviously our dream is to own our own oil rig, and that I would say is one of the had a lot of solid oil rig info in it. And we didn't find it particularly interesting, did we?
No, not at all, Russ. We did not.
Don't we have to hire somebody else to do all of the boring engineering stuff for us? Because
no. We just need to hire someone to watch this segment.
I hope we're not paid on an hourly rate. Make a fortune. Rod is wearing a beige suit with a beige tie.
Yeah.
And the background is various shades of beige.
Beige.
It is an absolute, bomb
explosion of beige.
Yeah. Which suits the segment down to a T, I guess, because
beige slick. Yeah.
It is very much.
Mate.
It is
honestly that was quite torturous. Honestly, to let the listeners behind the scenes, like we do normally have this on. We'll be chatting about something else, and just at various points, I just said to Russell, and I was not exaggerating. It's like, oh my god, it's still going on. I could not believe, and I know I've seen this before, Russ. I've seen this several times. It's so long.
Yeah.
Oh, and boring.
And it's a real selection box of stuff as well. Like I think our theory that we've just come up with this in the past hour or so that this is a cobbled together because they didn't have they lost their homework or whatever.
Yeah,
they've had to cobble something together from other things. They've just tried to put together
stretch.
Yeah. Put some other North Sea things in here as well, so we can get this as long as possible.
Yeah,
because a little mixed bag of different things, but it's too much, Mark. I can't.
Oh, it's too much, Russ, and yet not enough at the same time.
I think your analogy of it being like the end of Return of the King is very apt in that you keep thinking it's going to end, and then
it carries on. Yeah,
something else.
Which if you've enjoyed the first two movies and Return of the King, it's like, oh great, everyone gets a happy ending. But I'm aware that for a lot of people, it's like, but the film, no more. What? It's like they genuinely feel like they're about to wrap up, and you go, oh yeah, and then they introduce not a different segment, but like a slightly different element to exactly the same story, where they're just saying the same thing, but formulating a different structure of words to make it sound new and different. But it just carries. It won't end. If you told me that you'd paused it halfway through, Russ, and that there was still more, I would believe you.
Let's go through. Should we go through piece by piece?
Oh, how long for?
Not that long. It's just I have something to say about each little.
I know you do. Yeah,
each little mini segment.
Because and ultimately, it is about something really serious, which is like the destructive power of sea on man-made objects in the ocean, specifically oil rigs, obviously. And what are we doing about it? Because it's quite dangerous. How are we investigating it? And it feels like they've dressed it up as a bit of a kind of a watchdog style expose. Well,
it's a research report, Mark. It's one of their famous research reports.
One of the best segment, obviously, which we talk about every week.
The research report segment. Which had a lovely beige on beige logo. I don't know if you noticed.
Yep, 100%. Yep. I did. Just about.
Great logo colours, beige on beige. Although, having said that, I think we should also mention between the last segment and this segment, there is almost an ident, that is shown, which we've never seen before.
No,
I don't know whether we'll ever see again. And it's a whole new a whole new Tomorrow's World logo that they don't use in the opening titles, and it's all these sort of like neon versions of the logo go around the screen. And then there's this weird sort of synth music that played.
It reminded me like the interstitial music from like the Hitchhiker's Guide TV series.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we saw it earlier when Rod is in Texas. A little Chiron comes up saying Texas, but it has this TW in this font that we'd never seen before. And then there's this whole, as you say, this kind of linking ident. We've never seen it. I will try and put it up on Instagram. And with the question, do you recognize this Tomorrow's World ident? Because obviously we've seen enough of the different eras that we know they seemingly never use it ever again.
No.
Or if they do, it's only for a few weeks. So it must be, as I said, it's almost like a backdoor pilot to a new look for the show that they binned.
Yeah, because the idea of cutting between the segments with music, I've only ever seen from the stage. Because they do that quite a lot in those episodes.
They do, yeah.
But prior to that, I don't think I've ever seen them do that. So I don't know, just experimenting, I guess, or maybe
it's fine.
Maybe compensating for the really bad transition that they did between the Kieran and Rod segment.
Do you think they're treating us with a lovely little present because they screwed up earlier?
Yeah, maybe.
Like that makes it sound like you're describing an abusive relationship. Which, to be fair, after that last segment,
yeah, absolutely. Anyway, so first of all, right, we're talking about corrosion on oil rigs mainly. Yep. That's the thrust of the segment.
Yeah.
First of all, Kieran standing in front of a fairly impressive chunk of oil rig there. When I first looked at it, I thought, is that even there? Is he superimposed of it? But I think he is definitely in the studio.
Yeah.
He has a nice little chat about how there's almost like a old lady who swallowed a fly situation with the sea creatures that live on the... Cause they don't want the sea creatures living on sea creatures, as we know from a few episodes back, there's nothing that sea creatures love more than living on like man-made metal objects that have been chucked in the sea.
They love it, Russ.
Absolutely love it. So they're loving living on these oil rigs, but we don't want them on there because they might damage the metal and make them weak.
Yep.
So they've got to send down people.
They're bad tenants.
Send down people to remove the sea creatures. But for whatever reason, they've got a situation where the mussels are at the top, the sea anemones are in the middle, and the starfish are at the bottom. I don't know how they've become separated in that manner.
No, I didn't. They didn't explain that.
This weird ghettoization of the sea creatures. You would have thought they'd live in like combined ecosystem. But so he reckons that the starfish can eat the mussels, but they get stung by the anemones. So they're considering hosing off the anemones so that the starfish can get to the top and eat the mussels. That's the idea, isn't it?
How do starfish know the mussels are there? I don't know.
Yeah. No, I don't.
Unless they put up like Acme-style signs,
And that's demonstrated with one of the poorest pieces of animation I've ever seen.
Absolutely shocking.
Anyway, do you think they just had those on a piece of paper and just shoved the piece of paper like? I don't.
Yes. Yeah. If it's not that, it's the one level above it in terms of quality and professionalism.
Yeah. So obviously, my initial thing was, hang on a minute. So at the moment, they're hosing off loads of mussels. People eat mussels. I mean, this is surely they're sitting on a gold mine here.
Who doesn't love moules frites?
So I looked into this, and sure enough, in California in the 80s and 90s, there was a company called Ecomar. And some local bloke obviously worked this out, and his company, there was at the time there was 12 oil platforms in the ocean off the coast of California, and he got contracts with them all. And he would go, him and his team would go down with pressure hoses and hose off all of the mussels off of the legs. By 1994, he was harvesting 500,000 pounds of mussels a year off of these.
As in weight?
Yes, off of these oil rig legs, and apparently they're really good quality as well because for whatever reason the sea around oil rigs is surprisingly clean.
Oh, okay, all right, surprising.
Yeah. So that's a big money spinner for some people. I don't know whether they do it in the North Sea though. Maybe it's probably a bit cold to go down there, and I don't know, or maybe their mussels aren't as nice. I'm not sure. So that's that. Then what do they move on to? Then they move on to sacrificial anodes.
Yeah,
and this is Rod in his element, isn't it? He loves playing with lab equipment and
he does. Yeah,
connects up to electricity. Shameless advert for Ever Ready there with this battery connected to this.
I know.
All he's really explaining here is something that we were taught in science at school, and the whole thing about sacrificial anodes. Like I don't know whether you were taught it, but I was definitely taught it in science.
Yeah.
The whole idea that if you've got a more reactive metal if stuck next to a less reactive metal.
Yeah,
the more reactive metal will save the less reactive metal. So all they do is just bolt big chunks of aluminium or zinc to the steel legs of the oil rigs, and that saves them.
It does. I do always ask the same question to myself though. It's like, how far away from the oil rig do these sacrificial anodes need to be before the sea realise it's being tricked?
I think they have to be touching them, Mark. I don't. But the one interesting thing that did while I was looking, is there anything interesting about sacrificial anodes? And if you look at the bottom, you see that lasagna?
Yes, I did see the lasagna. Well, yeah, I thought that was disconnected. Go on.
So that is known as a lasagna cell or lasagna battery. What happens there, if you cook your lasagna in a steel cooking pan and wrap it in aluminium foil, and that aluminium foil is touching the top of the lasagna, the aluminium foil starts acting as a sacrificial anode for the steel pan. And because the salt of the lasagna acts as a like a thing. It's like for the ions. So the aluminium foil dissolves and sticks to the top of your lasagna. Yeah. So,
well, I mean, I don't know what's more mad, that process or the fact that people apparently are cooking lasagnas with tin foil over the top of them.
Well, yeah, some people,
especially get a nice. You want that lovely kind of. Anyway, go on. Yeah.
I suppose if you're trying to keep it warm afterwards, you might want to put foil over the top.
Yeah, amazing. Gosh, I was wondering what that was.
But yeah, and then I put a couple of pictures of what they look quite beautiful, don't they? Auric legs.
Yeah, very nice. They look gorgeous.
But we heard about that, and then what do they go on to next? Oh, they go on to the Smarty next, don't they? Which is I presume they've, as we were suggesting that it was probably some sort of backronym, and they've called it Smarty because they think it looks like a Smartie. I think it looks more like a number of other things. I think it looks more like a Smash Martian's head. It looks more like TikTok from Return to Oz's head.
Return to Oz, yeah.
Or was it something else it looked like? Oh, something from the Batteries Not Included. It looked like
yeah.
Yeah, but
it's very sweet. Though.
Very sweet. Yeah.
It's adorable.
But I think we did look at these before, didn't we? In an early episode, these are ROVs and AUVs, autonomous and remote operated underwater vehicles.
Yeah.
So I won't go into them too much because I'm sure I covered them before. I can't remember how much I covered them before, but I'm sure I did. Basically, little robot submarines. This one has a camera on the front, Mark. Did you notice the camera?
Only after Kieran pointed it at us because it's really subtle. I mean, it has to be no more than 17 centimeters wide.
Yeah, I mean, for the second time this episode, something that reminds me of Homer Simpson's stepson with a big camera in the front. Yeah. And then we go on to Rod talking about an acoustic camera, which is does exactly what it says in the tin, really. It's a camera that hears things, which is obviously useful underwater, I guess, because sound travels well underwater. Although Rod seems to suggest that it's pretty rubbish, doesn't he?
Yeah. He does, yeah.
So you wonder why they're even using them if they're that rubbish.
Yeah.
In fact, the Smarty they said was pretty rubbish. They said it couldn't see stuff, so I don't know why.
Why are we learning any of this?
Although the funny thing is that now they do still use these things. They still use these vehicles and they still use acoustic cameras. But apparently they're really good. So I guess it's a thing that they knew didn't work very well at the time, but they knew if they just plugged along with it, it would
persisted that they'd get there.
The technology would catch up, and then they would be useful. But yeah, you can get all sorts of acoustic cameras now. They're very good for hearing if there's a leak. Obviously, if there's anything leaking out, they can hear it, and they can also if they already know what the oil rig should sound like, if it stops sounding correct, then they know something's gone wrong. So yeah, and then. That's really it, isn't it?
That is it, Rust. Yep, that was, and well done for passing that down into. Do you know what? I have not said this for a very, very long time, but I don't know if you can include the full segment in the podcast, Russ. I just think it's too goddamn long.
Yeah.
So there is a part of me that says, no, you know what? Sod them. They're going to have to suffer through it like we did.
I feel like they should experience it in its full glory. Also, I have started just including the whole segments.
I know you have. Yeah, absolutely. But this is egregiously long.
So I think it's going to be quite a short episode this time anyway, Mark. I've probably got time.
Well, it would have been.
It would have
been. Except for that segment.
Yeah.
We could do it, Russ. Go on, we could do it.
All right. Jet setting Judith rides again.
There we go.
I hope you've not noticed, but I'm suffering from jet lag because only yesterday I flew back from the Philippines. We've been filming a series of reports there, which we hope to start showing you in a few weeks' time. And to make sure I last until the end of the programme, my thoughtful editor has supplied me with this new invention. It's a headband containing a crystal here in the centre that goes cold when an electric current is passed through it. The idea is that a cold forehead stops you dozing, although I don't think anything's going to keep me awake tonight. It's actually designed by the Japanese, of course, for car drivers, and it plugs into a cigarette lighter socket. Next Thursday's election day, and BBC One's evening schedules are changing, so it'll be 2 weeks before we're back. Until then, good night.
Next Thursday's election day, Mark.
I know. I was just thinking, actually, by the time you edit this and put it out, that could actually be true of here as well. So.
Oh, yeah. I wonder who won that election, eh?
Oh, what year was it?
1979.
Oh, I don't know.
No? Doesn't ring a bell.
No.
Now, normally these little these little silly little end segments are, a bit of fluff. But that was almost like a refreshing,
palate cleanser. Yeah.
I always felt like I enjoyed it more than I should have done. Just purely,
absolutely. I had tears running down my cheeks at the enjoyment and relief I felt.
Yeah. Judith channeling her inner Andre Agassi there with her this headband on that she's been. But her producer has told her to wear. I just realised Judith's presenting this whole program it's from a seat.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Do you think that's like literally Judith? Her jet lag's so bad that they couldn't trust her to stand up?
No, funny enough, with the talk of the producer, because I meant to put this in the notes, especially when she's doing the book thing earlier. It's almost like a Ronnie Cooper kind of thing. She's sitting in a seat talking about her producer.
Oh yeah, isn't it? Yeah. Wow. But yeah, her producer has made her put this headband on, which is meant to cool her head after she's been jet setting to the Philippines. She spends half her life in the Pacific these days, as far as I can tell, and it does make her look quite silly. It's kind of it looks like something somebody would wear in a science fiction program or film or something like that. Maybe. It does slightly annoy me. She doesn't wear it quite central on her head. But
she's tired.
Yeah, she's tired. She's tired. But
give a girl a break.
This is the second time they described something as a crystal, and I thought, a crystal that goes cold when you put current through it? That sounds mad. Is that true? And it kind of is. I didn't know that. Yeah, for some reason I didn't know this thing existed at all. But it does kind of make sense because sometimes there are things that are able to get cool that aren't fridges, aren't there?
Yeah.
Right? And apparently they work on this principle. It's a thing called the Peltier effect. And I could not understand exactly how it works, really. It seemed quite complicated and it involved electrons. But it's essentially, if you pass a current through a semiconductor, she calls a crystal, it does something that makes all of the electrons go to one place, and that part gets warm, and then the other part that they leave gets cold, basically, is somehow it works, but it's quite complicated. But it is, because they can only do it really on small scales at the moment, because it's quite power inefficient, and it's quite expensive. So they only really do it on small scales. So this thing on her head, and they also you can also get like these days you can get like sort of camping refrigerators, and like some posh cars have refrigerated glove compartments, and that's how they work. So. Oh, and climate controlled jackets you can get these days that have them in them.
Oh,
but the advantages are big. There's no moving parts because it's just this little chip thing. There's no moving parts. You don't need any refrigerant gases, so you don't need any CFCs or equivalents. They're very easy to build. They're very accurate temperatures. You can have them very small, and you can make them put them in any shape you like. You don't have to have like a fridge-shaped container or anything. You just put them in a pad like she's got on her forehead. So they could be the fridges of the future, Mark, as long as once they cracked the energy inefficiency and they get a bit cheaper. Yeah. So look out for that.
I will.
I felt like what it kind of reminded me of is how we always used to have hard drives in our computers with all like the spinning and all of the discs and all that.
Disc,
and now we just have SSDs, which are just they have no moving parts and are.
So this will be the solid state fridge.
Yes, I think so. Yes, yeah. But yeah, that's that. That is that, Mark. That is that. That is done.
Does it help with jet lag?
Well, I don't know. Does having a cool? I've never had jet lag, Mark, so I don't know. Does having a cool head? My sleep pattern is so erratic that that the jet lag has no power over me, Mark.
Yeah, you have no power over me. No, I was trying to think as you put it on. I was thinking like, would having a cold thing on your forehead make you less sleepy? And I was thinking like, I don't know. I mean, I know people try and open their windows and stuff like that, and they do try and blast themselves with a cold. So maybe, but I don't know. It just seemed stupid, to be honest.
Yeah, I know. My friend Clara has a thing for hangovers, but it's not actually for hangovers. It's this head thing that you keep in the freezer, and it's designed for people with like head cancer or something, brain cancer. But you can buy them on Amazon or whatever. And you keep it in the freezer, and then you can just like.
So they're not prescribed.
You can just put it on your head, and then it cools your head down. Apparently, she says it's really good for hangovers. So
okay,
yeah. Other than that, nothing else to say to you, Mark.
Great stuff. Does this episode end on a damn squib, Russ? Ours does. I was thinking. I know the reason the reason you want this to be so short. No, the reason this is accidentally so short is because I know what it is.
What?
You're thinking you have just under a year to train that car to shit exactly where you need it to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
you get out there this evening.
I was.
All right, then.
Yeah.
Go on.
No. I was thinking of is there any ways you could nobble the competition of that cow? I was thinking you could give it some sort of timed laxative, but you could never guarantee where it would be standing.
No, that's the thing is you don't know where it's going to stand.
It's not
that's what you have to fight.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it's going to shit, Russ. You don't need to worry about that.
yeah.
It's more that you need to get it to do it in the right place.
Yeah.
So the only competition is other people buying the squares, not the cow. The cow's not your competition. The cow could be your friend, but you need to train him to associate a certain square, like a Pavlov's cow.
Yeah. I can start playing games of battleships with it. Maybe teach it
what a great idea!
The concept.
Show him the Rihanna film as well.
Yeah.
Shall we?
Yep.
Should we crunch the numbers?
Absolutely.
All right, then. So let's talk about the year in context. Cinema box office, Russ. I suppose we know a couple of things that might be out, but do tell us.
Well, it's only four this time. Number 4, Escape to Athena, starring the British Dirk Benedict, Roger Moore. Also got Telly Savalas and David Niven in it.
Oh,
that sounds like a real rip-roaring adventure, doesn't it? Number 3, Every Which Way But Loose.
Yep.
Number 2, The Wiz. Never seen that. Have you seen that? The Jacko.
Yes. Yeah, but a very long time ago. It left no impact on me. Not awful, not great. I remember.
Starring Nipsey Russell. Shall I change my name to Nipsey Russell?
Well, it's already taken, but yeah, go for it.
Russell's Nipsey. And number 1, have a guess what it is.
Is it Battlestar Galactica?
Yeah!
Hey!
That's a U.
No, really?
Yeah, a bit scary for a U, isn't it?
They were so casual back then, though, weren't they? Well, Golden Child was a PG, Russ, as you and I well know. Pop chart?
Okay. Number 10, The Runner by the 3 Degrees. Number 9, Good Night Tonight by Wings. Number 8, Silly Thing / Who Killed Bambi by Sex Pistols and Tenpole Tudor. Is that Sex Pistols on one side and Tenpole Tudor on the other? Because there's two songs.
It sounds like a mashup, but it couldn't have been. It must be double A side.
Yeah, Tenpole Tudor. Obviously, all you ever think
Ed.
Yeah. Is Crystal Maze.
Yeah.
Also, I did see him. I saw him play live once at the Chaz Hodges Memorial concerts for Chaz from Chaz and Dave.
Yeah,
it's pretty good actually. Obviously, he did that one song that he does, Swords of a Thousand Men. Yeah. He didn't do it. He didn't run around going, "You've got an automatic lock-in," or anything like that. Number 7,
Mystery, physical.
Yeah. Number 7, The Logical Song by Supertramp.
Oh, good song.
Number 6, Hallelujah by Milk and Honey.
Okay.
Number 5, Pop Music by M.
Yep.
Number 4, Shake Your Body Down to the Ground by the Jacksons. Number 3, Cool for Cats by Squeeze. Was that a milk advert? Was it a milk advert?
It was a milk advert for us, yeah.
Number 2, Some Girls by Racy. And number 1, Bright Eyes by Art Garfunkel.
Wow. Jolly good. Prices?
Art Garfunkel would have quite a high baseball cap, wouldn't he?
I was thinking of the Texas guy.
Yeah.
I was.
Yeah.
That and the silhouette of the Kevin Durbin album. That, it might be Michael Knight. It could be Art Garfunkel.
Gallon of petrol, 98 pence. Bottle of Bell's whiskey, £4.75. Pint of beer, 46 pence. 20 figs, 67 pence. Pint of milk, 15 pence. Large loaf of bread, 25.5 pence. Half a pound of Tesco creamery butter, 30.5 pence. Average house price, £20,000. Ford Cortina, £3,500. And Golden Wonder crisps, 100 grams, 19.5 pence.
Okay, cool. Argos catalogue?
Well, Mark, I think we're in the golden age of Russell Hobbsing, because the absolute standout, most expensive kettle in the Argos catalogue this month is the Russell Hobbs 3636 automatic kettle, spout filling with water indicator, level indicator, switches off when boiled, safety cutout, 4,400 watts, capacity 3.5 pints, BEAB approved, recommended retail price £28.85, our price £20.99.
Gosh, what a bargain!
Absolutely, yeah, it's nearly £8 off.
That's incredible.
And
you could buy 4 bottles of whiskey with that.
Well, you could get a Commodore Pocket calculator for $8.95. So,
magazine covers, Russ.
New Scientist. It's got quite a fun cartoon of a spaceman on it, and it says "Death Rays from Outer Space," and it's about the story is about beam weapons, the facts. It's quite futuristic there. Maybe kind of cashing in on Star Wars and Battlestar Galactica as well, because, they'll have a beam weapon in space, don't they? Popular Science, inside GM's new front drive compacts. Obviously, Americans not used to the idea of front wheel drive cars, so that's what that's about. And the Pioneer Venus Report. Time Magazine. I've realised how much Time Magazine tends to be about the Ayatollah. It seems like every time we look at Time Magazine, there's some sort of Ayatollah-based.
I suppose when you think about it, he was the Taylor Swift of his time.
Yeah. So, it's just a picture of a fella on one of those towers. What's the tower called that they do the...
Minaret?
Is it where they stand and
yeah. They
yodel?
The call to prayer.
Yeah.
Ricola!
It's just one of those fellas doing that, and it says Islam... The Militant Revival.
Okay.
They not mention the fact that any of this is America's fault. I doubt.
No.
14 Times is a very early issue, and it's a very nice picture of an angel visiting a man, and it says visions, flying food, strange phenomena. Private Eye. You've got Jim Callahan standing outside the front of a church with his grandkids and some other people. And one of the little girls is saying, I didn't know Grandpa believed in God. And then the other little girl's saying, once every 5 years he does.
Look at that. So cynicism of politicians is not just a recent thing.
No.
Wow, who'd have thunk it?
No Viz this month because it doesn't exist yet.
Okay, that's hardly their fault.
Playboy. You've got Missy Cleveland on the front cover, and she's just taking a negligee off of her washing line. But she's forgotten to wear any clothes.
Oh no!
When she's gone to take it off the washing line, so it's lucky she's just standing behind the negligee. So obviously, embarrassingly, she'd probably be naked.
Gosh, that could have been awful.
It could have been, yeah. The Burger Court. Are the Supremes out of tune with the times? I would say in 1979, yes. Well, the Supremes weren't even going in 1979, were they?
No. Were they? No.
It was Diana Ross on her own, wasn't it? She was doing all the disco stuff then.
Unless the Supremes were trying to go on their own.
Oh, okay, maybe, yeah. Maybe. Malcolm Forbes' interview with the Happiest Millionaire, 25 years of rock and roll, and Sex in Chicago, getting it on in the second city.
Oh, how lovely. So, most important invention, Russ.
Well, you know what I'm going to say, Mark.
I suspect it's that bloody alarm thing, isn't it?
Of course it is. It's the alarm beeper. It's the sound of the past 40 years, Mark. It's the most important thing.
We're only alive today because of that alarm.
Yes.
Most worthless invention?
That fucking book.
Oh, yeah, shit, yeah.
It's not just worthless. It's not dangerous, but I mean,
yeah,
it is worthless. The fact that sixth form as technology project is probably the second most significant invention in this episode.
Oh my god, I hadn't even thought about that. Yeah, you're right, actually. Yeah, you're right. Jesus, please. Like even their lawnmower is actually, strictly speaking, probably better than the Smarty, which I quite like.
Yeah.
Oh god, that book. Most inaccurate prediction of the future.
Probably the idea that we're all going to be driving around in monorails all the time.
Yeah, I was thinking this exactly the same thing. That kind of that desire that we all live in a monorail future that just never really has delivered, has it?
No.
Worst screw up. Well, I mean, it goes without saying, it's the worst screw up we've ever come across.
Seen. Yeah, it's absolutely disgusting.
Absolutely, it's a car crash. God, this is easy, isn't it? Best attempt at making something boring interesting. This is hard because this category is not the opposite way round, so we have to go with.
Yeah.
So I don't know actually. Jetlag or rail.
That little jingly ident before the really boring segment.
Ooh, yeah.
I mean,
the little amuse-bouche that they give us.
It did set up the possibility that this segment might be exciting.
Yes, it did, didn't it, Russ? But actually, we should have seen through their ruse.
It was a nice burst of colour before the sea of beige.
It was tremendous. Yeah, you're right. That is absolutely correct. Best use of music. Well, I very much enjoyed the jazz tune that broke into the middle of the Dallas-Fort Worth People Mover thing, which I looked up and was a tune called The Following Morning by Eberhard Weber. And I don't know, never heard of Eberhard Weber or Eberhard Weber. I've never heard that piece of music before. I don't know how they chose it. It did not follow the Holmes of the Hammer rule of having a title that was inspired by whatever is literally happening on screen. So, apropos of nothing, they just drop it in, and I thought it was really good.
Yeah.
I would listen to that album.
Go with that. Yeah, absolutely.
Next question then we have is best or worst use of furniture. Well, of course we have the Ronnie Corbett chair that is, as you say, propping a jet-lagged, barely conscious Judith Hann up.
Yeah, I think that's got to be it, isn't it? I don't think there's any other notable furniture in this.
No, nothing jumps out at me.
No, it's got to be.
So I'm happy with that one. But to be fair, it makes a nice change from there not being any notable furniture. Most notable clothing.
Right.
I will put my hand up. I like the fact that Kieran Prendergast, when he's at the orchard, Prendiville, when he's at the orchard, is dressed like a mod.
Yeah.
But when he's in the studio, he's actually he does an uncanny impression of Jarvis Cocker.
Yeah, while wearing a tie that's quite similar to our sixth form tie.
Our sixth form tie, yeah. So I quite like that. I mean, obviously there is the beige slick that is Rod's suit later on.
Yeah.
But other than that, I can't think of anything.
Well, I mean, I'm gonna.
Oh, the hat.
Yeah, the hat.
It's the hat, isn't it? What am I even doing dancing around? It's the hat. Yeah, you're quite right, too. Did we see anything in the episode that made it into the future? Well, the alarm did.
The alarm did. Robot lawnmowers did.
Yeah.
Acoustic camera. But most of the oil rig stuff did.
Yeah.
Underwater vehicles.
Well, you can buy 2,000 Predator mites for 18 quid or whatever it is. So, yeah.
Fort Worth.
They made it through.
Fort Worth does still have a monorail, but not the same one.
Quite a lot, actually.
Yeah, plenty.
And including the Institute.
And that terrible book.
Yep.
So I think
13 million sold.
I think everything made it through, for good or bad.
What does this tell us about the 26th of April, 1979?
Something has happened that means that they've not been able to do a proper episode. So they're stalling for time and they've cobbled things together.
Yeah.
So
and I think I will give them this. It is only on multiple viewings that I think it becomes blatantly obvious that there are serious issues behind the scene.
Yeah. Do you think it's because Judith's jet lagged? Do you think it turns out that Judith did everything, and because she's jet lagged, she just can get things together properly?
That is as good a theory as any we've come up with, Russ. I thought there might be just some industrial action because there's normally industrial action, right? Yeah. But you just thought they'd be quite used to it. So no, maybe it is. Maybe Judith Hann is the beating heart of the show more ways than we expected. Tropes. So let's go through the list then. So we have presenter having to speak over louder sounds. That happens
in the alarms
right at the beginning with the alarm thing. Yeah. Happy with that. Something to do with oil rigs, Russ?
I think I might have mentioned it once or twice.
Bosch. Suspiciously obvious brand name of the ad-free BBC. There's quite a lot of this, actually. Yeah, I mean, there's the book. There's Ever Ready. There is... BP, that was the other one, thank you. There's quite a lot, actually, quite shocking abuse of license fee payers' money, I think, to clearly shill.
Smarty, does a Smarty count?
A Smarty? Oh, well, I posited that, and I think, yes, Audit, that is clearly named after the sweet, even if there are no yellow ones. So I think that's it, yes. Clear and blatant lying.
The book.
Can we talk about the book? In that context, I think we can. I mean, I'm sure they would say they're not lying, but of course, that doesn't mean you're entirely truthful. So I think that's absolutely true. Evil farmers?
Well, the owners of that orchard dousing those poor mites in pesticides.
I did wonder
and then learning that was actually a bad thing.
It's the one thing we didn't want to happen.
Yeah.
So I think that's good. Casual sexism. There was a bit of casual sexism. Back in that book thing, I found it really interesting that the parent is always described as she, and the child, the abstract hypothetical child, is always referred to as they or he. He wants to learn all this stuff. And I thought that was quite, I suppose it probably is reflective of the time in terms of the parent being the one most interested in the development of the child. But the fact that the child was always a boy when Judith the script, I thought counts as casual sexism. Even though the first clip we see is a young girl spotting the difference between the numbers.
Yes.
So I thought that was interesting. There's no lab space filled with darkness and coloured lights that I can remember. There's no Dutch angles. There's no items presented from a gantry. Episode ends in a damp squib, Russ?
I mean, no, I don't think so.
No. Bit of light teasing of Judith Hann there by the backroom staff, who are clearly under a lot of pressure all week, and they're allowed to let some steam off, I think.
Yeah.
No lasers. No magnets.
No. It's all about the
boats?
It's all about the crystals this week.
Yeah.
Boats. No, I don't think Smarty counts as a boat, is it?
I don't think it does. No. Travel to Shepherd's Bush? ?
No.
And I don't think there is any. They've actually gone to places this time.
Yeah.
Oh, so that's a real top half loaded.
A good few ticks there,
tick
though.
box there.
Yeah,
but right at the beginning, and then it tailed off. So the only other thing I have to add then is that as that is the 39th episode that we covered, there remain merely 1,370 episodes left for us to audit, Russ.
Oh, good grief! Wow,
which is very disheartening.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh. And,
I don't know how you feel about that. It looks like you're actually trying to process that information, and I apologise for just dumping in you like that.
No, I'm just trying to think of a way of ending the episode.
I thought you were, Russ.
But what I would say, Mark, is obviously I am quite excited for the next episode, because next episode is our 40th. So that means it's a little special episode. And I already know what we're going to do, Mark. Unusually.
Wow.
I already know what we're going to do. There's a big anniversary coming up, Mark, in May. So we will be covering that with a very special episode. Very special episode.
I can barely wait.
It's both a very special episode of Tomorrow's World and a very special episode of our podcast, Mark. So that's something to look forward to.
I believe in the business they call that synergy.
Yes. Well, Mark, I've got to go. I've just received a text from the head of the cow shitting game, and it turns out that my square came in. I've won the prize money.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, a whole €27. What can I spend it on, Mark? What can I spend it on?
Oh, my God, I don't know. Half a Russell Hobbs kettle?
Oh, yeah, maybe. Yeah. Or maybe a copy of that book.
Oh, yeah. It's $11.99.
Yeah, I'll get 2 copies. I'll send one over. I'll send one over to you as well.
Oh, please. And a Struproffel.
All right. Well, I think that's it from us. So look forward to the next episode. Should be coming quite soon, because we're going to record it quickly after this one. So look out for that. But other than that, I think we should go now. So it's goodbye from me, and it's goodbye from Mark. And if you are on internet, we will see you tomorrow. Bye.